Hello, Woolshift Dust family. Apologies for the delay on this episode. Please listen to the start of the Oscar Prep preview episode in this feed if you'd like more information about why that is. But just to let you know, this conversation you're about to hear was recorded back in December, shortly before Christmas, so apologies for any outdated references. But this is actually the perfect prep for Season 2 of Beacon 23, which starts April 7th on MGM+. In this episode, we remind you how last season ended, and we also discuss the Season 2 trailer and other speculation about what's to come. We will be back for one more episode before the new season launches, getting into our thoughts a few months after what you're about to hear now, and looking forward to the new season, plus sharing our coverage plans, of course, and Beacon 23 questions for discussion we've received from the community since recording this episode. So if you have any questions after this episode, please do email them to woolshiftdustpodcast@gmail.com so we can include that as well. That final Season 2 prep episode will also include an interview with a special guest. Beacon 23 author Hugh Howey is back, letting me pick his brain once more. So look out for that to drop in this feed. And in the meantime, enjoy this look back on Season 1 and our Season 2 news and speculation. And P.S. Congratulations to Canada. I hear Beacon 23 is now officially available there on Prime Video. Okay, let's go. Hello and welcome back to the Woolshift Dust coverage of Beacon 23, the MGM Plus series that asks, can AI lie while the humans get high? I'm Elysia, Beacon 23 bookkeeper, who will be comparing but not spoiling any future plot points for the show. Not only because I don't really know what's going to happen in this show based on the book, because the only character or name even they've carried over so far is a talking rock, but also because we mustn't spoil the pristine book unspoiled opinions of my co-host Luke. Hi, Luke.
Hi, Elysia. Yeah, once again, I am the fountain of all ignorance, and my mind has been blown by these last 3 episodes.
Yeah, so since MGM Plus went ahead and dropped us a double finale on the 17th, we're going to be covering all 3 remaining episodes of Season 1 we haven't covered yet in this episode. So not just 6 and 7, but 8 as well, the season finale. We'll be breaking down what happened episode by episode, putting together all the pieces to figure out what we know at the end of the season. And then we'll be talking about what we know about Season 2, which is coming much sooner than you might think. So that was good news, right?
Yeah, it was particularly on how we ended episode 8. I would have been very nervous had I not already known that Season 2 was in the can. Yeah, so I'm very glad. I'm very glad we kind of already knew that Season 2 was happening.
Yeah, I mean, I had like a little moment of doubt, like, well, what if the numbers aren't good enough, that they, even though they have it, they decide not to air it for some reason because they didn't want to finish the effects or who knows. But luckily, no, that's not the case. We have not only a confirmation that Season 2 is coming, but it's coming as soon as April. So were you surprised by that announcement?
Yeah, I was a little bit, because I thought even if they'd finished principal photography, like you say, I expected the effects would take a bit more time, or that they might have to do reshoots. But yeah, I'm certainly pleasantly surprised it's coming as soon as April.
And what were your thoughts, just briefly, about how this season ended and the season as a whole?
Well, I mean, as far as the season as a whole, based on like the first 3 or 4 episodes, I would say I enjoyed it, but hand on heart, I wouldn't have put it in the same league as Silo, the other show we've been reviewing. But the last 3 episodes, I think, really kicked the entire season up a notch.
Okay.
I really enjoyed these last 3 episodes, and I really do think it's. I wouldn't say that they're very similar shows, but it's certainly on a par in terms of how much I enjoyed it with Silo now.
Yeah. So do you think, would you be, I mean, you probably wouldn't know about the show if we weren't covering it, because that's what's going on with the marketing department.
Really doesn't
But
really exist in the UK,
yeah.
and I was actually quite kind of shocked at the fairly minimal level of promotion that MGM have put
Absolutely.
behind what is, what
Right.
is a show that they've put considerable resources into. It seems
Well, but they bought it completed, remember, because it was
okay.
made by a different studio. It was originally going to be on AMC from, what was it, Spectrum Originals, and then they shut down Spectrum Originals, and so they sold it off. And MGM Plus bought two of their shows, including this one.
Okay, so they actually bought. That's interesting because I thought they like bought the script, but the scripts, but they actually bought the show whole and complete.
Right. Yeah. But it was, I mean, I have to say the production company that really made the show happen is Boat Rocker, who's also responsible for shows like Orphan Black, which is one of my favorite shows.
Okay,
Um, how would you rank these last three episodes?
I would probably go 8, 6, 7.
Okay. I would also put seven third, but I would say 6, 8, 7. I think my favorite stretch of episodes this season was 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, mine would definitely be 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I really like I mean, I love Lena Heaney. I love Stephen James. I love these roles they're in and the chemistry between their characters and that relationship that we've seen. I don't know, the complexities of it that we've seen unfolding all season. But I really love my favorite two episodes are 4 and 6, which are the flashback episodes where we get the whole backstory, we get the world building, we get the
Yeah.
history of Bart.
Oh, Bart.
Oh,
Poor
Bart.
Bart.
So, by the way, spoilers for obviously for the entire first season of Beacon 23, and yeah, I will be talking about some things from the books. I will not spoil anything from the books that hasn't been that I at least don't think is off the table for this show because the show has wildly diverged. It's its own thing, set in the same kind of place, much bigger, but
Inspired by rather than adapted from.
absolutely. Um, yeah, and I'm glad about this April renewal because I know this is a show that asks a lot of patience, and some people haven't been feeling the patience. But I know those who trust the answers will come seem to be having a much better time with the show. So I'm sure that knowing the answers are coming this soon will help a lot of people, feel better about this finale and how they left things.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of unanswered questions, but I think we did get the exposition that I kind of wanted from
Mm-hmm.
these 3 episodes. I think we do understand more about the universe. We understand a lot more about the timeline
Yeah.
of events, and I think we sort of know a bit more about who the players are in the wider universe beyond
Right.
Palin and Asta and what they want
Exactly.
and what's motivating them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so we're gonna get into all that. Yeah, who the main players are, what exactly happened, what we do know and what we still don't know, what was revealed, and what we still need to find out next season. Right after this quick break.
Research request granted. Spoilers unlocked.
All right, jumping back to episode 6, which was simply called Beacon 23, and yeah, I have to say, if any episode earned to have the same title as the series, this is the one. Do you
Yeah,
agree? Yeah.
it absolutely did.
Because it really was. I mean, we also 4 was also a story of the beacon, but this really was the story of the beacon that tied the pieces together.
Also, for episode 6 and 7, like Wade Bogger, the
Yeah,
guy who voices Bart,
Bart.
I don't know what award you would put him up for, but he needs to be put up for some type of an award because,
Yeah,
good
he's
grief, as
brilliant.
far as voice acting goes, that guy blew it out of the park. It was an amazing performance.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredible that a lot of people's, including ours, our favorite character is, someone you don't see, you just hear his voice.
Yeah,
So yeah, he did an incredible job. So episode 6 was directed by Oz Scott, who was the same director as episode 5, Rocky. And it was written by Zach Penn, the season 1 showrunner, and Allison Moore, who they also worked together on the pilot. And it's another flashback episode. So yeah, like I said, I love Heidi, James, Moomba, but these flashback episodes might be my favorite. What about you? You said they're not your favorites, but are you a fan in general of the 4 and 6?
I'm a fan of anything that gives me more time with Bart.
Okay,
Frankly,
fair.
I'm just a complete Bart stan, which is unfortunate, but we'll put a
We'll
pin in
get to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw. So this episode takes place at an undefined point in the past, which we'll learn in episode 7 is 10 years before the present day storyline, quote unquote, before Solomon and after Astor's parents have abandoned their post. But Bart has apparently stood empty for about 10 years at this point. So is this about how you understood the timeline?
Yes, I think so. I'm a little bit hazy on some of the finer points of the timeline. I think I'm clear in terms of the sequence of who
Right.
came first and then who followed and then who came after
But
them.
we don't
in
have
terms of the
exact
actual
dates.
dates, I'm a little bit
Mhm.
hazier.
Yeah, definitely. But this means it's at least 20 years between when Astor left the Beacon as a child and when she returned as an adult, which tracks.
Yeah, which is about right.
Yeah, at least 20 years. Because she's about 40 now? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I think Nina had mid-40s, early 50s, something like that.
Well, but I mean, Astor is the character because she was, I guess, about 5 when they left.
Yeah, yes.
So I would guess it's about
yeah,
30 or so years.
Yeah, she would have been exactly 5.
Yeah. So we see a man we'll find out is named Keir, Mark Michaka. And at first, he looks to be a computer engineer installing what he claims is an update to protect Beacon 23 from a bombing that happened recently at Beacon 24. Our resident AI Bart, Wade Bogart O'Brien, knows better, but he plays it cool. He tries guilting Keir at first. How could someone destroy a beacon of all things, he asks, an entity that exists only to protect? Keir plays dumb and says he has no explanation, so Bart drops the act and calls him out for attaching a bomb to him. And now he can go in on the guilt angle even more directly. Why are you trying to kill me, motherfucker? He doesn't say that last part. He's not murderous Bart yet. We find out, actually, no, I guess this is after Aleph, so he did murder someone already.
Yes, it would have been after Aleph, yeah.
So we find out Keir is part of a group called the Column, who have a religious devotion to something they call the relics, which are the glowing rocks we've been hanging out with all season. Bart, knowing this, teases Keir with information. And Bart tells him he knows more about the relics than anyone else in the universe. And this finally turns Keir's head. Yeah, I think we can safely say Bart is probably pretty different from the other Beacon AIs. And I know the show is called Beacon 23, and the book never showed us other beacons, but now I'm kind of insanely curious about what the other Beacon AI are like. And
Yeah.
I hope next season, like, we get a flashback from one of the new characters. It includes a glimpse of a different location, maybe, fingers crossed.
Yeah. By the way, were you getting like big Foundation vibes off this whole storyline with the Column? It was very sort of Foundation and sort of.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, or The Expanse.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not psychohistory, is it? But it was something. It was something that sounded very similar to psychohistory. What?
Right.
The guy that Keir was quoting from.
Yeah, their whole collective consciousness. Yeah. We got some more teases in these episodes about whatever this religion is, but I still have questions and I'm looking forward to more answers on that. But we did find out that it's the Column that the war is against. So it is another human entity because we find out this episode that there has been no known contact with alien life.
Oh, I hadn't put 2 and 2 together, but yes,
Farouk says that. Yeah.
So yes, that must mean that the war is being fought against the Column. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's ever explicitly stated in any of the 3 episodes, but it certainly makes sense.
I mean, we know the Column is the enemy, and well, it gets more. They imply it hard enough that it gets kind of explicit. But
yeah, I guess
I have to be honest that I was wondering about if it was an alien species, because in the book it is an alien species they're fighting against called the Riff. And I never really expected them to show up because, like, they have sideways mouths, and I don't think that it would be some very involved CGI. But but now it's confirmed this is a human civil war at its core, and it's over ideology, of course. Or is it?
Yeah, or is it?
Yeah. I think this is still going to link back to the central quandary at the end of the book for any book readers, but I won't say anything more about that because until we learn more about what's going on here.
And we also find out why the colonies keep dying, and it's basically because humanity is expanding through the stars too quickly.
Well, but
they don't have the resources to support all these colonies.
Well, especially not with a column bombing out all of the beacons so that supplies can't get to them.
It's kind of. I can see your point, Kier, but you're kind of contributing to the problem, not the solution.
Yeah, I mean, you are the problem. Like you are the reason Aster's mom died is because
But yeah,
your column.
Going back to the beginning of the series, I think it was unclear as to why the colonies would run out of food, why they didn't set up hydroponics and stuff. And I still think that's a little bit suspect,
that's true.
But we do have kind of an explanation that there are too many colonies, that humanity is spreading out too quickly, and that there aren't necessarily the resources to support all these colonies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also just that we know now that the column is the one who they're talking about entire arms of beacons being bombed out, and that's why several colonies died. And now we know that it's the column behind that. And we saw Kier attempting to do such a bombing to Beacon 23, and since Beacon 24 was taken out, well, it seems they're probably going for the entire arm again.
The way back down.
Yeah. I don't think we know how long Solomon was there exactly on the beacon. I'm definitely going to do a season 1 rewatch before season 2 and see if I can pick up any more details from the earlier episodes now that we know more. But
I don't think it could be long. He couldn't have done his full 5 years. I don't.
But is it a full 5 years? Because they just said they had 5 years left from when they found out they were pregnant. So how long were Aster's parents there before that?
Yeah, good point. I don't think Solomon served a full term anyway.
No. I mean, he wasn't up to leave. He just left for other reasons.
Yeah, he didn't really leave so much as he was made to leave. He left.
Well, yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, they tried to call him back, and we're like, dude, no oxygen. Okay, don't listen. And I thought a character couldn't call.
Solomon did,
Yeah, no. I mean, he could have died worse, but and I thought a character couldn't die off screen, but there we go.
There we go, yeah.
So, but it's clear anyway that Bart was standing empty for a while, so I guess he could perform his function fine on his own, but it shows the state of affairs with ISA. But I do wonder, because they had someone who were going to replace Aster's parents, right? And then they disappeared, and then he was just empty for a decade?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm hoping season 2 puts more of these pieces in the middle back together, because I do know, for instance, we're getting a teenage Aster in season 2. That's on the cast list.
Okay.
But also in these last episodes, so they talk about the ISA and the military as two different entities. So we were or at least I was kind of thinking they were the same, but that actually makes sense. So it sounds like we have 4 players on the board. We have the space military, whatever that means. Hoping we find out more in season 2 what kind of government is running this universe. But it was the space military that Halen was working for, who he is AWOL from. We have the ISA, which is basically like intergalactic NASA, and they're responsible for building and staffing the beacons. And I wonder what else, because a lot of things I would think would be the job of the ISA seems to be the job of other people, including the QTA. So that's the tech company behind the faster than light space travel. And at least the Harmony style of AI, though I guess like the ISA designed the BART style of AI.
Yeah.
But yeah, the QTA is Alepht's company. And I guess their working together relationship, I guess this is sort of how SpaceX and NASA are starting to work together, with the private sector building the tech or even vessels that the government entity will use for their missions.
Yeah, it's my sort of sense was, this is kind of like SpaceX or something like Lockheed Martin with the Department of Defense, or, a big defense contractor, basically.
Yeah.
And we have, it all gets a bit doomed because we also have the space guilds.
Yeah, and there's also the space
mentioned very
guild.
briefly.
Yeah.
We don't really find out what they do, but yeah, it all got a bit doomed there for a second.
Well, I mean, I think that that's more commentary in this case. The guilds are really more about workers' rights, more commentary on unions.
Oh, okay.
Because, for instance, they're one of the groups that stands in the way of them removing humans from the beacons.
So we're talking like medieval trade guild.
Yeah, exactly.
Trades guild. Yeah.
Which is what Dune is based on, but they had just evolved to be the rich people, kind of.
Yeah.
So we find out that the QTA and ISA developed the GWIB technology together, the gravity wave beams that they're getting high off of the whole time. So that's interesting to note. And yeah, I just have to say it's timely. The final Last Week Tonight with John Oliver episode that came out the week that we're recording this, it had a deep dive into why it's dangerous to have a personality like Aleph, Elon Musk, in charge of such essential technology that's being supplied to the government. So if anyone, I think you can just find that bit on YouTube if anyone's curious. It ties in a lot to what we're seeing with the whole Aleph situation in this show and what I assume is coming next season.
Yeah. Is Aleph a character in the book at all, by the way? Or is he
No, like I
shown?
said, zero characters in the book. Arguably, Halen is the protagonist who is not named, but that's like the most similar character. And then the only other character that showed up on a one-for-one basis is Rocky.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no, but I guess what I'm saying is there's no sort of Aleph equivalent, oligarch business person.
Nope.
Okay.
No, in the book's like only 180 pages, so it's mostly from the perspective of the protagonist and the people that he meets at his own beacon, and we're aware of the larger war because he took part in it. But yeah, we don't really get the business interests at play.
Okay.
And so, yeah, the fourth group in this world is the Column, as we said. So this is a fringe group that seems to have formed around a sort of worship of these relics. Although I guess they didn't form around the worship of these relics. I guess that came in later, and we'll talk more about their motivations as we go on.
It seemed like it started off as a political group that became a religious group in discovering the relics.
But then I wonder, is it the group overall that's religious, or is it Keir because his girlfriend got him into that?
Yeah, because when the two other people show up,
they
don't
don't
seem
care.
all that interested in the relic. So yeah, that's a good point.
But the stuff that Keir's saying sounds oddly like what Milan was saying in episode 5.
Yeah.
But it's clear that the QTA and the Column are at odds. So it's interesting, but it's also sometimes that's true in real life. Sometimes the groups that are closest in ideology are the groups that fight the most viciously. Like,
oh, definitely, yeah.
If you think about like Protestants and Catholics or Sunnis and Shiites, especially when it comes to religion. How large do you think the Column is if they've started a whole war that's gone on for, I don't know, it seems like 100 years?
Well, it's got to be a fairly sizable organization. I wonder whether there are like Column colonies out there, whether there are whole colonies, planets, systems that have gone over to the Column. I would assume that if they're mounting a conventional war against the ISA, there must be. But these guys are waging sort of interstellar terrorism. So, are we meant to understand that this is a conventional war between armies, or is this? I think this is something we might find out in future seasons. Is this more like an insurgency, counter-terrorism campaign throughout the galaxy kind of thing?
I'm assuming this is a guerrilla war, and they're not trying to take on the military directly as much as take out strategic.
Too much into it, but the like the bits and pieces of combat footage we've seen seem to be like a fairly stand-up.
But we've seen them on planet doing a mission, but we haven't seen just straight on battle. There's not like face-to-face battle.
Yes.
Yeah, so we know that they say later when they see a ship coming from the Vega system, they think that must be Column. So they must have like a base there of sorts.
Yeah, like I say, I think
control of that sector.
Are like Column sympathetic colonies, or maybe even like groups of colonies, probably.
Yeah. Well, so now that Kier is listening to Bart begins his first story. So this is the episode that gave us basically everything we said we were hoping for in the last breakdown, starting with the very first Beacon 23 keeper, Dr. Ree Avalon, Carolina Bartzik.
What has she been in, Elysia? I've seen her in something, but I could not, for the life of me, think what. And I thought going on IMDb would be cheating, to be honest.
Oh, why would that be cheating?
I don't know. I just
That's
needed to
what I
work
do.
it out.
What do you think I spent so much time making these notes on? I don't know. I haven't really seen the stuff she's been in, but she's got like one of those faces that kind
Yeah,
of
like I know her from somewhere. I know I do.
yeah. She's been in a lot of stuff, but to be honest, like I mean, the only thing I see that I know is X-Men Apocalypse, and I don't know what role that is because I
Okay.
blocked most of that movie out. But I don't know. Yeah, she's got that very pleasing symmetrical face. Apparently,
Yeah.
normally darker hair. But yeah, so this is Dr. Ree Avalon, and we learned she basically put Bart together and gave him that name and made him who he is by choosing options in the ISA's AI builder menu. So it's kind of like a character creation menu in a video game. Did you get that sense too?
Yeah, and I love the fact that Bart doesn't have an avatar because the most true representation of Bart is the beacon itself. I
Yeah.
thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah, exactly. There is a default avatar option, though. I paused and looked at all the lists, obviously, but the default avatar option, I'm really wondering what that would be. So that's one of the things I hope we get a flash of another beacon to see, because
Yeah.
the other avatar options were historical, celebrity, or biblical. So all of the just first of all of the worries about AI using celebrity forms come true. So I guess the actors should be striking over this.
Yeah, no, I've just got this idea of scores of beacons being run by Taylor Swift now.
Yeah. I find that the biblical one is an interesting one. Religion seems to play a big role in this world. Are you
Yeah.
surprised by that?
No, but I mean, how would you make a biblical avatar? How do we know what Moses looked like? What you're actually
Well,
saying
yeah,
is
sure.
be Charlton Heston. We would be Charlton
Yeah,
Heston.
we're back to celebrities again. Yeah. I know. Yeah, I know some people are surprised when in sci-fi there's religion because they're advanced science users, but I think it's just religion is sort of an intrinsic part of humanity, especially when you're in a situation of isolation.
Yeah.
There's a hunt for meaning in the vast nothingness, and as we know from Dune, that religion is absolutely a means to exert control over populations.
Yeah.
Bart said, by the way, at this point, I was born under a lucky star, one might say, if the closest star hadn't died 300 million years prior, which doesn't make sense to me for a few reasons. Like, for one, when we use this expression, we're not talking about our sun, but now I'm just nitpicking.
Yeah, well, I don't think Bart. I'm not sure Bart quite gets metaphor.
No, that's fair. And we find out it's not a model name like we thought. It's just chosen from a list. We hear him referred to as a theta series in this episode, not a beta series like Aster called him in episode 1. But I'm guessing Aster maybe just slightly misremembered things and Bart was silenced at the time, so he couldn't correct her. But the final selection that Dr. Avalon makes is Bartholomew, no avatar, admin type 001, operator, none, personality, none, detector, default, definitions, common, learning, default, extroversion, outspoken. So Bart really kind of built himself. The only features she gave him were his name and his chattiness.
Yeah. Well, that's a reasonably good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea that Bart built his own personality.
Yeah, I think that's probably a big part of what makes him unique, what makes him different from other AI. I mean,
Yeah.
we've only seen really him and Harmony and Aleph, but we know that Bart is different just by the way that Harmony responds to him. She's constantly like, dude, what is wrong with you? And of course, yeah, that's after he was messed with. But
Yeah.
we also find out about Dr. Avalon that she grew up in a coastal area, one of the last humans Bart would meet born on Earth. So she's the one who brought the lighthouse photo, and it's implied that it was one local to her growing up, or reminded her of that at least.
I think it just reminded her of that. I don't think it was necessarily local to her, but somebody else framed it in the intervening period because she just tacked it up on the wall.
Yeah, well, we also saw it later in between this time and the quote unquote modern time. It was framed in the living room when Sylvie was there. So maybe Sylvie framed it and then someone else took it back upstairs.
Yeah,
But she puts it up in the GWB because to her, Bart was making the metaphor that the sea of space, like the space is the sea to her, remembering growing up in the edge of an ocean like that. But Dr. Avalon soon notices a strange light whooshing by in the sky, but Bart doesn't detect anything. She sees a sphere of growing rocks swirling around a central light that we left Halen and Aster looking at in the present timeline on episode 5. But Bart still detects nothing, and he's getting worried about its keeper. She's becoming addicted to watching what will become known as the artifact, spending 27 hours at a time in the cupola watching it without even realizing it. But after prodding from Dr. Avalon, Bart realizes it is weird how nothing the space she's staring at is. This is an entity, Bart, he's designed to detect dark matter of all things, and he still cannot see anything where his keeper says this artifact is. So he starts to look for that absolute nothingness, that absence of even space, and track it. And he notices it's not random. There's a pattern to its movements. So yeah, as we've discussed in previous episodes, the AI can't see the so-called artifact, and I guess this is how they figured that out.
yeah, and I like the idea that you see it by not seeing it. It's the dog in the night that didn't bark. It's the thing that didn't happen. It's the thing you can't see.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
gap. It's the negative space.
it's negative space, and yeah, I like how Bart gets all sort of philosophical about it because you shouldn't be able to see nothing, or at least the when you do see nothing, it should be genuinely random. Whereas this is actually, like you say, it fits a pattern.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And so Avalon also thinks she hears a foghorn at some point. Do you think that's the artifact digging into her memories?
Yeah, I think it probably is.
But yeah, it's interesting. Bart's looking at it from the perspective of Data, and Ree is operating on faith. She says, I know it's coming back. I just know. You have to trust me. And yeah, even if she doesn't understand how she knows. So that's playing into this whole Deus in Machina situation in this show. So Dr. Avalon dreams she's standing outside the lighthouse in her picture, looking out over the water at a light coming toward her. Bart wakes her up just as she's about to open the bay doors and go outside. She snaps to, puts on her spacesuit, and takes the picker out instead over Bart's objections. She takes off her helmet inside the picker, but in her vision, she's in a small boat on that sea outside the lighthouse, steering toward the light. And then she disappears into it. The picker floats in space, empty, and Bart can't find any trace of her. So, what do you think she went into the artifact, as Aster's talking
Yeah,
about later?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think there's a possibility because there was no body ever recovered, so I think she sort of became one, possibly like merged
Yeah,
into the artifact.
yeah.
And if that's the case, the only thing that gives me pause is if that's the case, why wouldn't the artifact send back a human being it had merged with as a messenger?
I don't
Or
know that
maybe
it
it's not
can.
capable of doing that.
I don't see. I mean, it sends back memories of the people it communicates with, but later on, Halen seems to think you can go in and come back out. But I was like, oh, you sweet summer child. I don't think that's an option.
Yeah.
I think it's a one-way ticket.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It has to be because otherwise, the entity, the aliens, whatever they are, would have had an easier way to communicate with humans. They could just have sent an emissary. Again, this is very deep space. This is
Yeah.
very Deep Space Nine, but they could have sent
Well, yeah.
an
Yeah.
emissary back to explain the situation.
But the emissaries that they're sending back are these visions. Like for
Yeah.
Halen in previous episodes, they had his old friend Gashad speaking to him. Or then they even just said, like, hey, I'm a rock. Look at me. I'm talking to you. Yeah, I think it's It's a good thing it was with Halen that the Space Spores learned that humans are fragile, to quote Rocky. But yeah, because Avalon would not have survived that
No,
spacewalk.
no, she definitely, no, she definitely wouldn't. And the panic in Bart's voice is,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the absolute. What are you doing? You're about to
Yeah.
walk out into space.
I know this is not how humans work. But it does, like, so the fact that she was absorbed by them or whatever happened, and they still didn't seem to know that humans were fragile. Does that mean her conscious, she's lost like these bits of human knowledge?
I, I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I think we need to circle back to that in
Yeah,
season
that's definitely
two.
gonna be a season 2 question.
Yeah,
Also, it's interesting that Avalon dreams she's at that lighthouse. So I just had to note they built that set, huh?
yeah, yeah.
So I have a feeling we might see that set at some point. Maybe somebody else
Maybe
is going to have
just maybe.
hallucinations.
Too expensive to only show once.
Yeah, exactly. And Bart tells Kier that he believes what he calls relics come from this artifact. And wouldn't Kier like a nice frothy beer while he listens to Bart's next story? Don't mind that the beer is clear. Bart's out of dyes since he hasn't had a keeper in almost 10 years. Once Bart tells Kier that the woman who set off the bomb on Beacon 24 died in the explosion, Kier says he'd rather like that drink after all. And he pauses the bomb's countdown. So I'm really glad that they showed that you do need supplies to feed the 3D printers, like the ink I referred to in the Beacon Premiere breakdown. So I'm glad we're keeping with that. Yeah, and it sounds like Kier's girlfriend's the one who got him at least into the religious side, but do you think she's the one who pulled him into the column?
Yeah, probably because I think actually the religious side of it probably is the column. I think it's probably a central sort of tenet of the column's belief system as it's developed.
Yeah, I don't know because I mean the artifacts couldn't that they seem to be obsessed with, they couldn't have existed before Grisha made them. You know, I mean, sorry, the relics, the rocks, the individual rocks that they were talking about.
No, I guess not. But I think the relics, I think the way they interpret the relics is sort of confirmation of their belief system, not that their belief system came from the relics.
Okay,
Sort of
could be.
it's a chicken and egg thing. The relics are confirmation of that they take the relics as confirmation of what they believe, not that what they believe is based on the relics. Well, that's
Okay.
how I understood it anyway.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see what we learn about that in season 2. But the fact that Kier's girlfriend seems to have gotten him into it explains why he's a bit less of a zealot when we see him in this episode. But when we see him after 10 years in jail, it seems like he's really leaned into that zealotry.
Yeah,
He's a believer.
he's wearing all white. I mean, that's
Yeah,
yeah,
that's it's cult code.
that's yeah. He is looking very culty.
And yeah, we also find out, as you alluded to, there's someone named Marcel Oken, a socio-futurist, they say, who was name dropped here. And we hear a bit more about him in these episodes, and I expect we'll hear more in season 2. But he says, the belief that humanity's evolutionary purpose is demonstrated within society is the point of the column. So here he translates that as we exist only in our relationships with each other. We mean something when we're connected. If we keep expanding, soon we won't even know who we are. And yeah, that we're getting too dependent on corporations and AI spread out like this. So the goal of the column is to stop human expansion through space. And yeah, that seems to be why they're blowing up beacons all over. So these far flung colonies die and humanity stops trying to set them up.
Yeah, and I mean, I think also his point is that that expansion was going too quickly anyway. That these colonies are dying because these planets are being colonized without enough resources
I
anyway.
mean, the only colonies we've seen dying thus far are because they didn't have supplies because the beacons were blown up. But we'll see
Yeah,
if
that's
there's more
true.
than that. But so far, it seems like the column is really the one causing the deaths that they're lamenting.
It's true.
Um, but also, this is where it seems to overlap with Milan's collective consciousness goals. Kier's talking about we're only mean something when we're connected, and when we keep expanding, we don't know who we are. So yeah, that seems to argue a bit for collective conscious. I can see why that would start to buy into the whole idea of the artifact, that
No, because I think
ideology.
I disagree with you. I disagree
Okay.
with you a bit there, because I think what Milan is talking about is the idea of fusing humanity together into a single collective consciousness. What
Mm-hmm.
the column are talking about is social relationships.
Right. But what I'm saying is that Milan's idea is the more extreme version of that. Like you fuse in social relationships so much that you become a single collective consciousness.
Kind of, but I think the column would say actually that society, in order for it to exist, has to be made up of individuals. Like the genius of building communities is to account for and find a place for individuality, whereas Milan wants to obliterate it.
I mean, I think you and I would say that, but we haven't heard the column say anything like that yet. I'm not saying it's not possible, but we haven't
Yeah,
heard
okay.
them suggest anything like that yet. Like, because they seem to, at least, I mean, and this is not unique to the column, obviously, but we learn later they want, well, we know already they ask people to sacrifice themselves to subsume their personal interest to their collective goal.
I guess.
We know that the column believes the relics contain a warning from an alien civilization, and so yes, we know they're trying to talk to Aster, Halen, Avalon, etc. Although it's still not completely clear what their message is, although Aster and Avalon seem to understand it. So I'm definitely looking forward to finding out. Well, first of all, I want to know how the column connects back to the characters on this beacon, other than obviously we know that Kier showed up before and now he's back. Uh, but obviously there must be a connection further back than that they would even know about these relics.
Yes.
So Kier is starting to get annoyed with Bart's mind games, so Bart launches into his next story to distract him. And I love how he says, "I promise, the next part of the story will answer all your questions." And I felt like that was directed at the more impatient viewers.
Wink to the audience.
Yeah. Just be patient, it's coming. Regulations for beacon keepers have changed through the years, we find out, with some advocating for the removal of human keepers altogether, as I said, but the ISA and unions refuse that. But after some unfortunate events, as Bart puts it, with solitary keepers, couples were allowed to be jointly assigned to a beacon as long as they were sterile. But despite testing sterile, the young couple keeping the beacon in this story, Farut, AJ Simmons, and Grisha, Sydney or Ozarov Meyer, are unexpectedly expecting a child. Bart advises them they must either resign their post or terminate the pregnancy. And Grisha and Farut talk him into keeping their secret, but he warns them that one day the ISA will find out and arrest them and possibly take the child away. But they say they've got 5 years before their shift ends to figure it out. So yeah, one thing. So I was thinking about this whole idea about removing the human element. And I guess it's true. Bart definitely did this job for at least a decade on his own. So I guess it's possible. In the book, the reason they say there's a human keeper is the protagonist says, "I'm the meaty center of this rusted metal popsicle out here on the edge of space. I'm here because they haven't made a computer yet that won't do something stupid one time out of 100 trillion. Seems like good odds, but when computers are doing trillions of things a day, that means a whole lot of stupid. And I'm supposed to be smart enough to sort them out."
Yeah, I mean that's why I assumed they were human keepers. In this version, that you need somebody just to check that the AI is working. You need somebody as like almost as an insurance policy.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that if the AI goes wrong, there's literally somebody to push the button.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Why do you think it was so important to the ISA that keepers didn't have kids on the beacon?
I assume just because it was like you wouldn't need the. But I was thinking about this because the first thought was you wouldn't need the reason is you wouldn't need the medical facilities, but you'd still need the medical facilities if either one of the beacon keepers were injured. So
Right.
that doesn't seem likely. Probably not the healthiest environment to raise children in, but I can think of worse.
Right. I mean, I was wondering if it could be the GWB, because Bart says later if the ISA found out about who turns out to be Aster Parsum, they would want to study her.
Yeah, so maybe the GWB would have an effect on like development. That seems
Maybe.
plausible. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we get more answers on that one. Do you think that the artifact had something to, because Grisha was supposed to be sterile, she was tested, and
Oh yeah, on
then
the
she,
run up to Christmas, we might be looking at immaculate conception.
you think that it's possible that Aster's father isn't Farut, but is the relic itself?
Oh, I mean, actually, I was gonna come to that in a second because the instant those two actors come on screen, you instantly work out what the twist would be. Because if those two actors had a child, she would look like Lena Headey. I mean,
Oh, right.
it's a
Wait,
really good.
so you're saying that her parents are her parents?
No, I'm saying.
Oh, that you worked out that Parson was Lena Headey. Okay,
Yeah, because
yeah.
like it's a really good piece of casting because you put those
Yeah.
two people together, the
Yeah.
child they're going to have would look very
Yeah.
much like Lena Headey.
But I wonder if they did something with whatever was making Grisha sterile to
Yeah,
undo
so
that. Yeah.
well, because she said, because like from the ISA's point of view, would you be happy if one part was sterile, or would you insist that both had to be, like, as an extra piece of insurance?
I mean, she said specifically, I'm sterile, but I would assume one would be enough generally. If you can't have kids, you can't have kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that we find out more. And we also get to see Bart get his drone form, the Theta, not the Beta series again, designed to last forever, Farut says. And Bart says he knows that the baby will be a girl, and he says he has no idea how profoundly this child would change him. Aw.
Oh.
And jumping ahead, we see Bart playing hide and seek with a nearly 5-year-old Parsum, Matilda Legault. Her parents are planning their escape on a supply ship a few months before the end of their shift, and Grisha is not happy with the backwater options left open to them to escape to, but as we all know from adult Aster, they do eventually settle on Menelaus, or at least Grisha and Aster do.
Yeah. By the way, this scene is so wholesome. I could hardly stand it. Like Bart
Oh, the
playing
hide
hide
and
and
seek?
seek. It's just
Yeah.
oh my. There was a lump in my throat the size of a hen's egg.
Yeah. No, they
It's
have
so
to give
cute.
us the sweetest Bart before they kill him.
Yeah, it is. It's just so cute. Poor Bart.
Yeah, poor Bart.
And yeah, it seems like Menelaus is the worst of the worst, like the lowest of the low, the worst place you could possibly
Yeah,
be.
they didn't, out of the options they discussed, that was like their last resort option.
That was even worse than the place where the
Right.
drinking water tasted like graphene. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it's around this time that young Parsum starts to see the artifact, developing a fixation with it similar to Dr. Avalon's, but she also starts chanting in an alien language, and she's saying something like, mishmash, yech bishmash,
Yeah,
bishmak,
we go into the full Shining there for a minute.
yech bishmak. Yeah, I mean, although, so the names of this family and the alien language here, they feel like Hebraic, Islamic coded. Like,
it seems Hebrew or Hebrew adjacent.
yeah. So, well, we also have, so Parsum is what is the Persian Jews are called.
Yeah.
And Farut sounds similar to Farouk, which is a common Arabic name, which means to separate or to distinguish between right and wrong. And Grisha is also an interesting name. So, of course, Shadow and Bone fans are immediately going to be like, oh, because like the witchy characters in Shadow and Bone are the Grisha. But there is a lot of discussion about whether those Grisha in those books are Jewish coded, although the name is really the Russian name that used to be more for boys and now use for girls has shut up a lot in the past, like literally 2 years. I looked up the prevalence of the name for girls, and it used to be that there was like about 5 million boys or girls with that name in the world. And now, since 2021, there's like 20 million women named Grisha or girls. Yeah, babies.
Is that a Shadow and Bone thing, do you think?
Probably. Yeah. But anyway, it's interesting. When I was trying to look up like the words that she's saying, the word mishmak, which it's a name, but I did find it linked to an old Yemeni Hebrew text where it was interpreted to mean listen, which sounds a lot like what the Space Spores were saying to Halen last episode. So I have to assume, obviously, the language is made up. It's a conlang, a constructed language like Valyrian or Klingon. But generally, these are based on existing languages. So I would love to hear from anyone who does speak Hebrew and or Arabic on whether they see any connections with any of the names or the words that we hear in this language. And yeah, Grisha asks what her daughter's singing. But at this point, it's funny. I have to wonder if they put two scenes together because at this point, her daughter's just like monotone chanting. But later, she does like sing the words a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bart claims during this part that he does not experience emotion per se, but his various responses have evolved over time. So I don't know. I think Bart's wrong. I think he is experiencing emotion.
Oh, he's definitely experiencing emotion.
Yeah.
Like, there is joy in Bart's voice.
Yeah.
He's
I
playing
agree.
hide and seek with her. I mean, that's just.
And he
Yeah,
says
he
she
is.
changed his life. Yeah.
Yeah, he may not think he's experiencing emotion, but he is.
And this is presumably after the whole Sylvie thing. So he definitely was experiencing emotion then.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So Farut is fascinated by the artifact as well, but Grisha is only scared of the effect it's having on their child, who is obsessed with staring at it. And strain begins to grow between the adults as Farut tries to understand what the artifact might be communicating. He's certain that this is humanity's first contact with alien life. Bart, who can't even see the thing, is definitely with Grisha on this one. And Grisha wants to find a way to leave earlier than planned, worried their daughter won't make it another 4 months like this. She's been going absolutely feral trying to get outside, and they've even resorted to sedating her. Farut keeps coming up with reasons that they need to wait, like that they will be charged with dereliction of duty, but it's clear what he really wants is to study the artifact more. And yeah, at one point, Parsum even kicks her mom in the face to get her to stop pulling her away from the window and then shows no remorse. So it's just like a complete switch has been switched. And this is where we hear also, yeah, we'll be lucky to bribe our way to Menelaus. So this is how we know it's considered worse than Seclier 8, which is where the drinking water tastes like graphene, or Baruni, where there are violent protests from anti-settlers.
Yeah, although I don't get that because, like Parsons' mum says, if they didn't want to live, if they were protesting about being on a colony, why are they on a colony?
Well, I don't know because I don't want to bring up current events too much, but it reminds me of people within Israel who aren't necessarily happy with Israel, but you're born there, and that's,
I guess.
yeah. And Keir says, I didn't know AI could lie. And Bart says, I have programming, of course, but I'm affected by others and learn from my experiences. So, yeah, we questioned where he learned it. And you were saying he learned from experience. And there we go. Confirmed.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of what my friend Precious said. Her royal bubbliness said in episode 4 about what it means to be human. So that kind of feels like the core theme of the show to me, looking back in the season. Like, this is a show about what it means to be human.
Yeah, I think if the show has a theme, it's what does it mean? What does it mean to be human? And also, I think alongside that, what's the nature of loneliness? I think that there's a lot about the show that's about people looking for connection with other people, with the universe, with I think it's the thing I keep coming back to with Halen and Asta is that these people have been brought together by the artifact, but they've also been brought together, I think, by their own loneliness and their own sense of being sort of isolated from the rest of the world, basically.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think I always love a found family story, and maybe that's also what I like about this show, or the elements of found family in it. So Grisha finds the hidden files on Dr. Avalon's experiences with the artifact, and Farut adds his calculations to hers. He realizes that the artifact is trying to take Parsum, but he has like this smile when he says that. It was like, Farut.
Yeah,
Dirty
did
dark
it
dog.
remind you I can't remember the character's name. I should have looked it up. Have you ever seen the James Cameron movie, the Abyss?
Which one? Oh, The Abyss. Oh, I actually think that's one, like, I feel like I've seen it, but I probably haven't. I know it's the underwater one.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Michael Bihn's character in that. Now, Michael Bihn's character in that is trying to kill the alien, not communicate with it. but there's something about the look on the guy's face that really reminds me of
Okay.
Michael Bean's performance in that film. So I wonder if that was something the actor drew on, because the physicality of the performance is very
Okay.
similar.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
But like I say, what they're trying to achieve is completely different. But it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So Farouk wants to use his daughter Parsim as a means to communicate with the artifact, which is the last straw for Grisha, and she bombs the artifact out of the sky, and it falls apart into individual glowing blue rocks, the relics the column are looking for. And these individual stones, Bart can finally see. So we learn AI cannot see the relic, can see the individual parts of it.
Yeah. Oh, and also so Farouk delivers the coldest line, which is, "What would our lives even mean anymore if she was hurt? Your life wouldn't mean anything to me anymore." And it's just like, perfectly fair, but ouch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but that was also he was so far gone too. Like the way he was just not caring about the well-being, the fact that their daughter had changed so much,
Yeah.
and Bart cared more than Farouk did, and I think that was because of this
Yeah,
artifact.
the artifact clearly has like a powerful influence over
Yeah,
people.
mm-hmm.
It's almost like, it's not quite possession, but it's almost
It's
possession.
bordering on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with Halen, they kind of all the way
Yeah,
did
they
it.
crossed that borderline. They actually did
Yeah.
Salem.
Yeah, and they got him to cross the galaxy. But I
Yeah.
I wonder, like, how far did these rocks get scattered? Because how did some end up over where Halen was, where they picked him up?
I assume they must have got picked up by a passing ship. They wouldn't have
Maybe.
got there by themselves.
Yeah. I suppose that's part of the backstory we'll see, because we still haven't completely seen what happened beyond Halen seeing a bunch of blue spores coming out of a rock
Yeah, I
on
mean,
that
they
planet.
could just have like been sucked into like the air intake of a passing ship or something. I don't know.
Or they picked them up to study them and took them
Yeah.
somewhere. So the column started their war about ending human expansion, and I guess his religious element came later than after this
Yes, I think
point.
so.
So for Roots, he's mad at his wife for blowing up the artifact, but his daughter's laughing again and playing around and acting normal. But because Grisha fired off a bomb, ISA will be coming to check in. And Grisha says this is when she says nothing means more to her than her daughter, including her husband.
Yeah, ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. I mean, like I say, perfectly justified, but the way she says, "Your life wouldn't mean anything to me."
Yeah, if she died, I don't care about your life. Like,
Yeah,
well,
ouch.
I mean, I guess that's, if she feels like her husband is playing roulette with their
Oh
daughter's
yeah, I mean,
life. Yeah.
absolutely, she would be more than justified in walking out on him. But ouch, that's a
Yeah,
cold
but
one.
they seemed in love at first. I mean, they seemed
Yeah.
in love, before the artifact. So, the artifact is not bringing people together, it's tearing them apart. But Bart, he knows Parson won't remember him in the future because she's so young. So he prints her a special necklace with a pendant in a crystalline form. So this is the one we see her wearing as an adult. She said her mom gave it to her, but it was actually Bart who gave it to her. And she gives Bart a thank you kiss. And her mom gives her a new name for their life on the run, Aster.
And again,
So,
oh my
Aster, Alex.
lump the size of a hen's egg in my throat.
Oh,
Bart.
Bart. But then I wonder, like, how he saw the crystal pattern or where the crystal pattern came from, because the rocks hadn't been studied up close yet, right? Could they
No,
have? Could
that's a good
the
point.
artifact somehow affect him, affect AI as well? I mean,
Yeah,
we
it
know
could
they
like
can't see it, but
leave like an after image
yeah,
somewhere in his subconscious.
well, because Harmony is saying later. I feel like everyone here starts to lose it at some point, including maybe even her, including Bart, obviously, and she says maybe even including myself. So I wonder if the artifact does also somehow affect AI.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that it does.
I have a question though about the changing. So Astrocalix is a cool name, but considering nobody knew Parsum existed, did they have to change her name?
Yeah, no, that doesn't entirely make sense.
That was obviously to keep it a secret from viewers. Fine.
Except, like you say, I worked it out within like 2 seconds.
Yeah. I remember it was like there's a preview with a kid in it. I was like, oh, that kid must be Aster.
Yeah, this was not. Yeah, I'm not sure this was as clever a reveal as you think it was. To be.
But it's so cool. I love this episode. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorites. Bart admits to Kier that he knows where the relics are, and he says he'll tell his next keeper. But for now, Bart's done stalling. He called the ISA when Kier showed up, and now they've arrived to arrest him. Kier decides he'll set off the bomb after all, at least be reunited with his partner, but Bart has long since disarmed it. He swears he meant every word he said, though, and that he learned from Kier. Bart will think on and share what Kier said to him, and he hopes Kier will also take his imprisonment time to develop his own ideas, which apparently he does. But again, it's like when Bart killed Milan, you just kind of only made the situation worse in a way.
Yeah.
And okay, so this also pisses me off even more at Solomon. So Bart says he'll tell the next keeper where the relics are. So that means he told Solomon. So all of Solomon's findings were thanks to Bart telling him, and still Solomon kept him in the dark and treated him badly.
Oh, just we'll yeah.
We'll get to Solomon.
We'll get. Don't worry, I've got thoughts on Solomon.
I just noticed like Avalon and this couple trusted Bart, and he proved trustworthy. And I think there's something in there about how when you distrust people, they're more likely to behave in a way that proves that distrust. And when you trust people, they're more likely to behave in a trustworthy way.
Yeah.
And yeah, the last line of the episode is, he says, there is no weapon as powerful as an idea. Boom. It's a good line. It's true. It's a bit heavy-handed, but it is very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, pen is mightier than the sword and all that. So where does Kier fall for you on the Halen-Solomon scale?
Ooh. I think he falls fairly heavily towards the Solomon end of the scale.
Yeah,
because
you think?
He is trying to blow up a beacon.
Yeah. I mean, at the start, but then he does listen.
Yeah, but I don't think it's like, I don't think he, from what we see in the next episode, I don't think any of his ideas have like fundamentally changed. I think he has a more elevated sense of himself in the next episode and a more elevated sense of destiny, but I don't think he's any better person. I don't think his encounter with Bart changed him for the better.
Okay.
And yeah, I think the ends don't justify the means.
Okay. I'm a little softer on Kier than you are. But yeah, he's a complex character, and I like that about him. I found him an interesting character.
Okay.
Did you not find him an interesting character?
I did. I just found him a bit more of an audience. I found him more of an interesting character in the next episode where he's had sort of 10 years to brew on the ideas of this.
But I'm talking overall, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm saying overall I found him an interesting character.
But I'm saying in this episode, he's really more of an audience stand-in to get Bart to tell us the next part of the story.
That's true.
And he's also a little bit buzzed by the end of the episode as well.
Well, yeah, I don't know. This seems like a guy who can handle more than 2 beers, but it's okay.
He had at least 3, I think.
Oh, yeah, still.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next episode is episode 7, titled End Transmission, and you said you didn't like the sound of this title, and you were right. Oh, Bart.
Oh, this episode broke me. It really did.
This was a tough one. The director was Greg Beeman, who he's been directing since the 80s, and he's best known for work on shows like The Wonder Years, Jag, Smallville, Heroes, and Falling Skies. And the writer was Richard Kahn, who's the actor turned writer who also worked on episode 3. This episode opens with Bart excitedly welcoming Solomon, Stephen Root, to the beacon, who promptly shuts down his joy.
I love the idea of Bart planning a surprise party. And somewhere, I like to think that Bart had looked into Solomon's personnel file and found that he liked classical music.
And
that was why that was.
I'm sure
he was playing in the background, but it's so cute.
It's like the cutest Bart's ever been. But he's been alone for a long time. He's so excited to have a new beacon keeper.
Yeah.
And Solomon's, of course, the worst. We discovered that even more in this cluster of episodes, but he's so richly complex, I have to say, because you don't expect a foodie who likes to wear that much color to dislike fun.
Yeah, and also, but I mean, like Stephen Root is absolutely chewing the scenery. It's just
In the best possible way.
It's a magnificently hammy. It's a magnificently hammy performance.
Oh, I enjoy it. I have a hope. Basically, everyone who dies, I'm like, I hope we get flashbacks
Yeah,
or some
I
other
do.
version.
Well, I mean, I hope I hope Bart is backed up on a cloud somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because he had all of that memory scooped out. Maybe it was put somewhere.
Yeah, you would think with AI this powerful, they must have a version of the cloud. They must have
Well,
a
especially
version of the backup.
because Solomon would want to have those. Like he would, a lot of the stuff he would be scooping out would be the memories around the artifact, and he would want to keep that. So maybe he just kept it all.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, I hope he's in a really, 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 really hot corner of hell being force-fed airline food for eternity.
So speaking of why we're mad at him, Solomon
Yes.
asks where Bart's system root drives are, and he basically gives him a lobotomy while scooping out the majority of his memories that made him the bot that he is today. So yeah, if I think this is definitely true of humans, is that if you take identical twin studies and you put them in different situations, the differences between them are their experiences, their memories. It's what makes you an individual, and that was taken away from Bart.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, he actually murders Bart because
Mm-hmm.
he takes away what makes Bart Bart.
Yeah, exactly. Which was exactly his goal because apparently Bart's tendency to side with his keepers has caused the ISA to dub him unreliable. And the cruelest thing is like the last thing he tells Bart before he loses his memory of the family that he had loved is that Farouk was arrested and tattled on Bart. So it was like, yeah, you lost your temporary beacon daddy's gone, and oh, by the way, he turned coat on you as well.
Just Solomon is just the worst. Like I say, hottest corner of hell being fed airline food for eternity. Possibly be made to watch Clarence on repeat
Oh,
constantly as well.
Clarence, it's such a fun bad movie. It's like The Room. So we know from Master, of course, that she and her mother Grisha made it to Menelaus, but her mother died there in the collapse. But yeah, so it was. I'm taking my internet points, by the way. It was Solomon messing with his code.
Yep. Internet points. Well done, Elysia.
But I do wonder, they don't say, just pointing out, they don't say what happens to Farouk when he's arrested. So I'm looking for a follow up story on that.
Yeah, but I mean, I if we do get a follow up story, that would be cool. But I don't think Farouk has much left to contribute to the plot.
Well, but I wonder, well, I'll talk about it in a bit.
Okay.
We do we get this really lovely montage then of Aster, Lena Headey, and Halen, Stephen James, taking turns to watch the artifact or sleep in the same bed. So this is maybe my favorite sequence in the series cinematically. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I like this sequence, and I like the way that they are sort of sleeping in the same bed, but there is nothing the least bit sexy about it.
Yeah, it's just a very casual
Yeah,
intimacy.
it's
Yeah.
just not played. It's just not played that way, and I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And yeah, the way they're sort of kicking each other awake, and yeah. Although I hope they change the sheets really regularly
Yeah.
on that bed because that's going to get stinky really quickly.
And I have to ask what happened to that second mattress.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Like, you don't have to do this. There's another mattress.
But I guess it's just easier. And maybe they like that casual intimacy, you
Yeah.
know? They kind of,
Well, maybe
even though,
maybe it's cold and they've only got the one duvet. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like they had any sort of sexual relationship, but they definitely felt like they were a
Yeah,
bonded pair in some
yeah.
way.
Well,
Um,
I like the fact that the way it was shot.
yeah,
Didn't it?
exactly.
They were sleeping together. They were not sleeping
Yeah.
together.
And they got closer and closer until Halen ended up on the floor.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the QTA still hasn't arrived because didn't Harmony say at the end of episode
Yeah, they were like
5 that they were
14
like,
hours away or something.
yeah. I mean, I guess it could still mean weeks away if there was I guess, no, the storm was going to end in 14 hours, but
Oh, okay. Okay.
But maybe they're still like a week or so away because this is definitely going on for days.
Yeah.
But one day, Harmony, Natasha Mumba, tells Halen that his ship, the Amboina, has reappeared again, drifting, engine dead. And in 12 hours, it will be close enough to investigate. So I had to look up the name Amboina, and actually, I didn't recognize the name, but I do know this story because it's a horrific piece of Dutch history. So the Amboina massacre happened in 1623 on the Ambon Island in Indonesia. And it was when the Dutch East India Company tortured and massacred 21 men after accusing them of spying for their rivals, the British. So interesting name for them to choose for that ship. And I guess I'm wondering why the ship was drifting back to them. Should we just take it like shifts, it just happened to be drifting in that direction? Or could it be possible that someone somewhere gave it a push back in that direction?
I took it that the artifact probably gave it a
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
yeah, because it seems a bit improbable that it would just drift, in the whole infinite vastness of space.
Yeah.
It would drift back
Harmony
in
seems
that
seems
direction by
yeah.
itself.
Harmony seems surprised. So
Yeah. And the other interesting is, where is Solomon? Because there's no corpse that we.
there was a corpse. We
Oh,
saw the corpse.
did we see a corpse?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shut my mouth. I completely.
I think I caught like just it quickly the first time I watched, and then the second time I
Okay.
paused.
I watched it twice and I missed it altogether. So
And we also learned that there are more incoming ships, which could be any of the various players. And Aster, annoyed that Halen is talking to Harmony and not watching the artifact, she goes barging up there and she sees a vision of a younger version of herself. And suddenly she remembers being a young child on this beacon. And I wonder if these gravity waves, by the way, that make humans loopy, if the space rocks are attracted to them somehow, if they have some sort of effect on them.
yeah, possibly.
But in any case, I don't know. It doubles down on the trippiness. We've got like the Gwib highs, and we've got the space spore lunacy working together here.
Yeah, so Astra at this point really is sort of flying. She is completely tripping balls.
She's tripping past balls. What's that? She's
I have no idea what tripping past balls is.
tripping jump ropes. I don't know. But then when Aster's vision clears, the artifact is gone, and Aster's not happy because Halen left it unattended. So she goes charging downstairs to look through the old notebooks, and she realizes the old chests there belong to her family. So that's why she was lingering oddly over these clothes a few episodes ago. It wasn't about Halen's suit. It was her dad's clothing.
Yeah. Planting and payoff.
Yeah, exactly. Just got to be patient. So Aster fills Halen in and shows him the nick she left on Bart as a small child. Harmony's skeptical, though, and she thinks Aster might be delusional. What do you think of Harmony in these episodes? Where do you think she falls on the Halen to Solomon scale?
I'm gonna pass on that question because I don't think it's fair to put Harmony on that scale, because I think as we find out in a bit, I don't think Harmony is acting entirely of her own free will.
No, but I do think underneath that she still has, like, she insists in this group of episodes, she insists that she is loyal to Aster, and I'm inclined to believe her on that. Although she does also say, of course, AI can lie.
I think if it were entirely up to her, she would be ride or die with Aster, but it isn't.
Okay.
And like I say, I would be reluctant to put her on a hero villain scale, because I think in order to be on that scale, you have to be acting of your own free will, and I don't think Harmony is, or at least not entirely.
But yeah, I mean, I think she's not like the Winter Soldier for Marvel fans who just has no idea what its real identity is. I think she can be a hero and still be restricted by a villainous agenda. It's just about how, like we see, for instance, later we see Bart is instructed to lock Halen in, and he can't go around that instruction, so he finds another way to help him by giving him
I
a
mean,
hint.
I know I have a tendency to default back to Westworld, but in this instance, I think
Mhm.
it's merited because
No, of course.
what Harmony reminds me of is one of the Westworld hosts,
Mhm.
in the sense that
Maeve specifically,
they
I would
have the
say.
ability to learn, they have the ability to adapt, they have the ability to go off script, but there is parts of their core programming that sort of burn so deeply into their personality that they find it exceptionally hard to break that. And I think
Okay.
that's the situation that Harmony is in.
But I say she reminds me of Maeve specifically because Maeve does find a way to break that, and I still think Harmony's going to.
Yeah, Harmony might get there, but I don't think she's not there yet. She's a long way off
No,
that.
no. No,
Not,
and she's saying a lot of things in these episodes to like keeps trying to get Aster to surrender, which I know that's her programming, and she's kind of half-hearted about it at times, but she still keeps coming back to it, like, and then goes to Halen, like, you have to get Aster to surrender to the QTA.
yeah.
So Harmony confirms she can't see the rocks anymore now that they've reformed into the artifact, and one of the incoming ships arrives, and it appears to be a stolen ship coming from Vega. So again, a known center of column activity, and it's Kier out of jail a decade after his last visit to the Speakin, and he asks for Parsim and says he has answers for her about why she was drawn back to this place. So, over everybody else's objections, Aster lets him enter the beacon. Were you glad to see him back when you watched this the first time?
I mean, I was surprised. I honestly didn't think
Yeah?
they were going to bring him back within an episode. I
Yeah,
thought we
that
were
was
going to
fast.
see him again, but I didn't think they were going to bring him back within an episode.
Yeah.
And what was really cool is, we're meant to understand there's at least 10 years between these performances, and
Hmm.
the way the actor delivers, he does deliver two very distinct performances. You
I
absolutely
agree.
believe that this character has been on a sort of spiritual
Right.
journey over the last decade.
And compliments to hair and makeup, too.
Yeah, compliments to. Although I think also the costuming, because him turning up in that all
Mm.
white costume is like really, really sinister.
He got that at Colts R Us.
Yeah, it sort of gave off quite strong sort of righteous gemstones energy.
Okay. I hear a lot of good things about that. I haven't watched it,
Yeah,
though.
no, you should.
Yeah. My sister loves it. I do like this exchange, though. Harmony says the column is a huge threat, and Aster says so is QTA, and Kier says very true. I love Kier's deliveries, and I do think that even though he's he's not like one of the good guys, obviously, but I think he's not like Solomon, who's just Solomon's
Oh yeah, no,
a
Solomon's just
psychopath.
irredeemably bad.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, Kier is doing bad things for what he perceives to be a good reason.
Hmm.
Solomon is just doing them because he can, and because it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, Solomon just doesn't care. I do think Kier cares. Yeah, Kier might be doing the wrong things for the right reasons, and Solomon just doesn't care
yeah.
about anything but himself. And I love also Kier says, "Is this a hostage situation?" He's like, "Oh, okay, I get it." And Halen's like, "No, you don't get it." And Kier's like, "Yes, I do. I'm not judging. It's hard to meet someone out in the asshole of the galaxy." Like, true. So Kier surprises them by knowing Bart, though Bart doesn't know him anymore, and knowing that Bart makes a delicious beer, this time with dyes and other aesthetic enhancements. And it turns out that Kier's distracting them, so his cohorts, Saldana, Jess Salguero, and Finch, Daniel Malik, can sneak into the station. Yeah, what did you think of these people?
Yeah. I mean,
So what were you
Kia
going to say
and
about the
his
beer?
henchman, Kia plus two.
Hmm.
Because as soon as Kia knows who Bart is and Bart doesn't know who Kia is, they
Yeah.
kind of that's I think the point at which Bart starts to put together that something's gone seriously awry here
Hmm.
somewhere along the line, because Bart tries to dismiss it.
Well, because he thinks also like those wreckers hacked him, so he can blame a lot on that. But he's like, no, it's more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I do like the your barn being able to produce a tasty beverage.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why Kia brought along the two others. Like, it
Mm-mm.
seems because his whole what he wants out of the situation is going to rely on Asta cooperating. So
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not quite
I don't,
sure.
I'm assuming it wasn't up to him because they do not seem to get along.
That's true, actually. But yeah,
And I have to say, I really dislike this couple and not in like the fun way.
no, I don't like them either.
Like I felt like they didn't have the nuance and depth that the other characters did. They kind of seem more like crude stereotypes,
Yeah,
but therefore,
I mean, in fairness, it's not so much even crude stereotypes; they're just bog standard henchmen.
yeah. I mean, I think they must be there so that we see the softer side of Kier in contrast. But for me, they detracted a little bit from Kier's story. Although I have to say, in my second watch, I softened on them a lot more.
Yeah, because they are in a relationship
Yeah.
with each other. They do have like moments where they're fleshed out as characters a little bit, but like their entire MO is to come onto the station and just kick things. And it's like,
Yeah.
why? Why are you here? What are you trying to
Exactly.
achieve?
And it's not about the actors because like I know Daniel Malick from other things and I like him as an actor. I'm not familiar with the actress, but I'm sure she's lovely. But it's not about the actors. It's just about the way the other characters have been written with so much more nuance and shading that these two kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to me.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that. I think it's like, yeah, you've managed to write even characters that have very brief screen time as being 3 dimensional. These
Mm-hmm.
guys are just henchmen. They are
Yeah.
just there to be henchmen.
Yeah. And what did you think of the whole neck port
Yeah, like
situation?
what was going on with the whole net port, and what
Well,
was
I
it?
mean, that does connect in with, for instance, what we saw with the hacker in the from the Wrecker crew in the second
Yeah, I
episode.
suppose, but his was in his chest.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess
Yeah,
different places
and
for
he
different things.
wasn't getting like the liquid shots.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So I wonder what is this drug that he's like a junkie for? What is
Yeah, and
that doing?
it wasn't doing him any good at all.
And then also the other question I have is at some point, like he takes something painfully off of that port. It looks like a little sort of disc, tiny mini disc,
Yeah,
and then he
memory
puts it on
stick
Bart.
kind of thing.
And I guess that helps him hack Bart, but I guess maybe it makes a connection. Okay, now I'm getting it. As I'm talking through it, I'm getting it. So I guess it kind of makes a wireless connection that helps him control Bart, maybe, in addition to her getting the
Maybe.
ring. Okay. But anyway, that's I won't harp on my feelings about them. They kind of dampened my feelings about these two episodes in the first watch, but on the second watch, much less so, which is a good thing because I did see on IMDb they're back for the start of the next season, which makes
Yeah,
sense
because
because they're still
they're
there.
still there.
Yeah. So, but I do have a question. Like, couldn't Bart or Harmony detect there were 3 people on the ship? Or maybe I mean, who knows? You can have technology that cancels that out.
Wouldn't
Headcanon.
give me information unless they're directly asked for it.
Yeah.
They don't
Well, I don't,
volunteer
Harmony
information.
would say if she thought there was something that was threatening them.
Yeah.
So Kier, speaking of that, Kier again says, I thought AI couldn't lie. And Harmony clarifies, that's a crude stereotype. AI can lie. But she said, but she says it's Bart's memories that are the problem right now.
Yeah.
So while we've got Fiddle and Faddle sneaking around the station, everyone else is confronting Bart about his memory issues. And yeah, Kier says, Bart, you are a wonder. This coming from the guy you got thrown in jail for a cold 10. Like, that kind of makes me like Kier more. Like, this is one of the reasons why I'm softer on him. But then Tweedle and Deedle attack out of nowhere, and Kier's like, be cool, you're blowing up my spot when I was making progress. And Stupid and Stupider are like, derp, but it's been like a whole 10 minutes, and how have you not done
I
all the
haven't killed
things?
anybody. You gotta get me.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go ahead and slow the whole plot down instead with a pointless hostage situation. So yeah, they try to hack Bart's memory, but what memory? And Kier wants to get his own plan back on track. He knows Aster can communicate with the artifact, but Pissel and Gristle think that the only way into someone's head is by smashing it open. And they say a lot of inane things, and Kier is much more patient with them than I am as a viewer. And Saldana tells
You
Kier,
really didn't
she'll give
like
him an
those
hour.
two, did you?
I don't know if that came across, but I promise I'll tone it down. But okay, so here's one of my theories is, do you think maybe Kier met Farouk in jail? And this is how he knows things about Aster, like extra things?
Yeah.
Keeping an eye
That
out for
hadn't
it.
occurred to me, but yeah, that is a good theory. I'm liking that. I'm
I'm
liking that a
sticking that
lot.
out there for season 2. We'll see if I get my internet points enough.
Yeah. Now, here's a building off of that, taking that and building on it.
Okay.
Do we think Aleph kind of ensured that the two of them did meet?
I could see that. I mean, because I do wonder, because sometimes we haven't seen Kier and Aleph talk, but I want to see them talk because I feel like their philosophies are kind of dancing around each other. And I want to
Yeah.
see, I think
Because
by talking to each other, we will get a better definition of what each individually believes, you know?
because even if their philosophies don't line up, functionally they want the same thing. They want to be able to communicate with the artifact.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter at the end of the day whether philosophically they're coming from the same place, because ultimately they want the same outcome.
Yeah, true. So Saldana contacts headquarters on the QT to say the base is secure, and Halen is noticing that his ship is starting to get into range. I love this where Kier tries to, I don't know, confront Aster, and she chokes him, and he's like, "Stop! You know you're the hostage, right?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't care.
yeah, classic Aster. And then, yeah, he says to her, that message you're after, millions of people are waiting for you to find it. So I guess that means the column has millions of members. Although,
I don't know. I just took that as like humanity in general.
I mean, humanity now on a single planet, we have 8 billion. So I imagine
Yeah,
in this
so maybe it's just
must be trillions.
yeah. So probably it's slip of the tongue. But yeah, I just took that as like a species. It would be a species defining moment. But yeah, it could
Yeah.
be more specific. It could be the column more specifically, I guess.
So then Bart remembers a subroutine that detects absence. So this is the one that he built with Dr. Avalon to help her track the movement of the artifact, and he uses it to probe the empty spots in his own data. He finds the research from before and concludes that what Grisha did to the artifact altered it. And now that it's reformed, it's no longer following the same patterns. He uses this information to recalculate its path and predict its next appearance. So yeah, he lies though and says he's remembered, which is really sad and heartbreaking. But he's just actually extrapolating from the data he was able to dig up.
Art.
Fucked. Art. You're crying about him all through the holidays.
Yeah.
So Saldana goes to free Halen, but he's already freed himself. She's oddly fond of him. She offers him a place with the column, but Aster assures Halen privately she's on his side, just playing along. Kier, however, overhears, shaking his faith in his messiah figure. Aster has a jokey aside about trying to achieve total consciousness. And do you think that's playing along, or do you think she's really buying into it at this
Oh
point?
no, I think he's playing along.
Okay. Then we get the closest we'll ever get, maybe, to a Bart mini romance, this season at least, as Harmony tries to comfort Bart and he tries to explain the anger he feels at the emptiness he finds inside himself. So I guess at least he's finally mad at Solomon. That's a pro.
Yeah,
Silver
but
lining.
that's that awful. There's that heartbreaking line. I feel rage towards Solomon, and yet still I mourn him.
Oh, yeah.
Which
And
is
Bart
like,
thinks he
yeah,
doesn't have emotion.
Bart is just like hugely conflicted at this point, and like Harmony does her best, but
Mm-hmm.
she's not particularly empathetic towards what Bart
No,
is.
I don't think Harmony experiences emotion quite the same way Bart does.
No, I get the sense that Harmony is much younger than Bart is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, because she would have been born after Aleph was. So that's after
Yeah.
Bart. But also, I think it has to do with the fact that Bart's first mother, Ree Avalon, she left his personality more open. All she just said was that he was extroverted and his name was Bart. And then he was allowed to build himself. And I think there's something human in that.
Yeah, and you think Harmony is much more.
I think Aleph built all of his AI very specifically.
Yeah, okay, I think I think that's probably right.
And yeah, so Harmony says, Bart, you need to stay in control. What you're describing is a pathology. And so this word isn't quite used correctly for our day, but I'm just going to say language may have evolved in the future. But she's basically just saying he sounds mentally ill, which makes me ask, like, did you just meet him, Harm?
Yeah, and also I don't think what Bart is feeling is pathological. I
No,
think what Bart is feeling is perfectly justified given the
but that's to her,
circumstances.
from her perspective. She's like, you sound like you have the sickness of humanity in you.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, from Harmony's point of view, yeah, because she talks about like frustration, and what Bart's feeling is way past that. It's
Yeah. Way more complex
rage.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's rage, but it's also with that dark lining of remorse and
yeah,
sadness, mourning. So Saldana says Kier's time is up, but Kier says they've made progress, and Saldana tells him AI like Bart are the enemy. And yeah, she just wants to grab Aster and run. Kier says Okun was very clear on this, and he gets interrupted. Do not quote that shit to me. So this tells me, yeah, obviously he knows a lot more about the scripture, and there may be because Coley also said something about not trusting AI. So there's obviously some sort of popular, prevalent distrust of AI that's not baked into the religion per se. It's more on
yeah. It's
the
more just a
societal,
yeah,
experiential level.
or maybe Coley column curious, column adjacent, had read some
Mm,
column stuff.
could be.
Maybe
Yeah, she's brought up later by Saldana, who's like, "Oh, who's that? Who you had this partner you were running around with?"
yeah,
While they're arguing, Finch announces the QTA has arrived, and we learn the beacon has a drone shield, but the cutters, so the fighter jets of the QTA, Luke, you pointed out that's an old type of ship
yeah.
on the sea. They randomize their attacks to confuse the drone shield. And Saldana, she wants to try and run, but Halen says they'd never make it. And Harmony once asked her to surrender to the QTA again, over and over. And Halen wants him and Aster to take the picker and get to his ship and get out of there. But Aster refuses to leave with him also. And she says she's not the type to ask him to stay. So he decides to get the picker and go. Did you think like they might be actually separated here?
No, I didn't. I didn't think Halen. I didn't think Halen would really leave Astra, and also Harmony. Let it go. We're not. Surrender is not an
Yeah.
surrender is not an option
I
here.
feel like that's got to be baked into her because at another point she's like, I have to tell you this to surrender,
Yeah,
but I know you're not going to listen. She's going through the motions. And Bart said he informed the authorities, but I'm not sure. So if he says the authorities, does that mean that I would think that meant the ISA, but then the QTA showed up? But then again, we know they work together. So I'm wondering what the chain of command is here.
I just assume at this point that the QTA has Beacon 23 under like permanent surveillance. This is
Yeah,
what the fourth or fifth attempt the QTA has made to access.
true. True, and we know why. There's a
Yeah,
very good reason why. And obviously that's come to a head now that the artifact has just appeared in the sky and
yeah,
everyone can see it. Yeah. Everyone who's not AI can see it. Sorry, I didn't mean to be AIist.
yeah.
And yeah, Bart, he apologizes to Halen and says that Halen was right about Solomon and Halen is a good guy. So they have this really nice kind of last moment together where, yeah, so like I said before, Bart, he was given that direct order by Finch, I guess, that he can't countermand. He can't open the doors for Halen to leave, but he gives him a tip. He says if the pressure alarm goes off, the doors will open automatically. If you're looking for a heavy object, there's one right there. So Halen bashes some pipes and he's free to go. So yeah, that's why I say even though he has this programming holding him back, Bart, he found a way to work around it. And I, I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna use a Wheel of Time term, but the Aes Sedai are these sorceress women who can't lie, but they find ways to manipulate the truth anyway. So that was an Aes Sedai move there.
Okay.
You're not breaking your oath, but you're finding a way around it. And yeah, and then Halen says, "Thanks, Bart. I'm sorry I didn't meet you at your best." And Bart says, "Me too. Maybe we could have been friends." And I need that alternate reality where they get to be friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
backup Bart next season.
Yeah. Bring back Bart.
Bring back Bart, hashtag.
Yeah.
We know the season's already filmed. Whatever is happening is happening. But it was a nice talk between Bart and Aster too, and where she's telling him it's just as empty out there, but sometimes people leave because staying is worse. But I had this like heartbreaking thought. Like, do you think Bart thought about this when he decided to go in his own way?
Yeah. I think he did.
Well, but now Lena Headey starts to get some insight into Bart's anger problems, and we got like a great side eye moment there. So everyone on the beacon starts to realize the temperature's rising. They realize it's Bart overheating, and Aster understands he's not trying to hurt them. He's killing himself. He believes the great version of himself Aster and Kier remember existed, but he can't be him again. There is nothing they can do to stop him, and he is gone. So I just have to pause here and say, like, this is super heavy. And if there is anyone who's feeling like this, who's feeling truth in these words, I do really urge you to reach out to the people in your life, to Google your local suicide hotlines. Please don't be like Bart, because like him, you too will be missed more than you realize. Bart didn't know that Luke and I were going to be mourning him all through the holidays.
Yeah.
People he doesn't even know. So, but yeah, Bart says, humans tell themselves to find purpose, but stories are meaningless to him. He finds purpose in data. So there's something interesting in there, but I feel like Bart's selling himself a lot of he's selling himself a lot of stories in the end, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he is. I think this is a rationalization of the pain he is in, not like a true expression of what he's feeling.
Yeah,
which is a very very human thing to do.
absolutely.
But yeah, I don't think it's a true representation of Bart's feelings. I think he's trying to justify his actions
Yeah.
to not even to Aster and Halen, but just to the world at large. But I don't think what he's saying is emotionally true.
No. And I mean, he says he can't remember his past, but I feel like deep down he kind of does and is clinging to those abandonment issues from like Avalon leaving him and Sylvie turning away from him and Farouk ratting him out and Solomon, of course. Because, he asks Aster, he's like, why should I have faith in you? So you can disappoint me and delete me when I disappoint you?
Yeah.
It feels like somewhere down there he remembers what happened.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And we even see Harmony try one last time from inside the AI space. Although, like, I started in my second watch, I got this conspiracy theory. Like, what if she wasn't helping him? We saw them repeat the scene where she says, listen to the sound of my voice, but we never see what happens after she says that. So,
yeah.
But what we do hear is Bart's last words on the outside. I only want to help, be a part of something, but I'm always the outsider. I'm done being the weak link. This is just too hard. And he goes black. So yeah, we have the tragedy of Bart. And I was waiting for it to play out like Hamlet, but it didn't quite. So the summary of Hamlet from the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust is the ghost of the King of Denmark tells his son Hamlet to avenge his murder by killing the new king, Hamlet's uncle. Hamlet feigns madness, contemplates life and death, and seeks revenge. His uncle, fearing for his life, also devises plots to kill Hamlet. The play ends with a duel during which the king, queen, Hamlet's opponent, and Hamlet himself are killed. So, I obviously thought in this analogy, Bart is Hamlet. who perhaps more than feigned his madness. And Solomon seems like the ghost father, telling him to avenge his death and kill the new king, Halen. But then, this definitely does not end with a duel between Bart and Halen. It ends with quite the opposite of that. And also, fewer people died in this version, so it could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been worse, but it was still pretty bad.
Yeah. But do you see Hamlet parallels in Bart's story?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, in any case, fingers crossed there's a ghost of Bart as in a backup.
Yeah, I really hope there is a version of Bart somewhere in the cloud, and there must be, because you wouldn't create an artificial intelligence that complex and not have a way to, not have a backup of it, not have a way to restore it. Should it be corrupted, or should it fail? Now, the interesting question is, how far back does that backup go? Does it go back as far as the time before Solomon messed with Bart, basically?
Well, I mean, I guess the backup, I would assume, would be Solomon taking it out of the central system. So hopefully it would be Bart up to that point where Solomon messed with him.
Yeah.
This is just wishful thinking. I will be holding my breath until April, FYI.
Well, I'll be holding it with you. So
yeah.
yeah.
So I did look at like the IMDb cast list, but they don't even have. I know, for instance, Stephen James is coming back. It's part of the announcement, but he's not even listed on there, so we can't trust anything that's on IMDb right now.
Okay.
So meanwhile, Halen makes it to his ship and he finds the corpse of Solomon. Good riddance. He also finds one of those rocks. And this must be the rock he originally got the spores from that traveled with him. And as one of the QTA cutters gets through the drone barrier, that rock, I'm assuming, goes flying through space in the other direction. And, we see at the beginning of the next episode, it reunites with the rest of the artifact. We don't know, though, if this makes the artifact whole again or if there are other missing pieces. So, yeah, I guess some characters die off screen. Good riddance, but maybe, hopefully, more Stephen Root in flashbacks anyway, just for funsies.
Only if it's him getting repeatedly kicked in the nuts.
Oh, maybe he had a horrible time collecting those rocks.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Because you think about it, that was just his purpose. He gathered all those rocks and then died.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been pleasant.
I guess, and it's interesting, they didn't talk to him, it doesn't seem like. Or maybe they just got him to gather them. But
yeah, that's true. They don't see.
It wasn't like they wanted him to join them.
Maybe they can sense, good people.
He's a bad egg.
I mean, they certainly have the ability to watch people. So
yeah, definitely, clearly. Or it seems like maybe they can see inside. Well, we know Halen has some living in his brain, so that would make sense that they could communicate with the rest of the colony. I wonder if we would find out that, because I was wondering, remember I brought up in the book, Halen, or sorry, the protagonist, the Halen whatever counterpart, was the only one who could get high off the gwib. And so I was wondering if Aster maybe she also has spores in her brain. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Maybe they all somehow got spores in the brain who got but then Coley would have to too. Anyway, just putting it on the table. Yeah, so Harmony, she's starting to think that this beacon makes everyone lose their mind, maybe including herself, since she can't explain any of it. And she tells Aster to surrender again. But she knows she won't, so she drops it. And she says their beacon is the hope that one day they will both understand what is happening here. So again, assuring the audience, right?
Yeah. And also, there's just a weariness in the way Natasha Mumba delivers that line of like, I am done with this.
Yeah. I
am so done with this.
Like, yeah, I'm saying the thing.
Yeah.
Aster sees the column members fighting, and she goes up to the cupola to stare at the artifact again, which has reappeared. And Halen sees the cutters zipping toward the beacon, so he takes off after them in his ship. Wasn't that engine supposed to be dead, or just off?
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be dead, but I think plot control. I'm prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It was just off, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and that's the end of the episode. I'm really glad they released them both at the same time because really felt like it was a mid-episode ending.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. I wonder if they looked at the calendar, worked out when
Yeah.
the show was going to be ready, and sort of planned that in advance.
Yeah, because at first I thought the finale was going to be dropped on Christmas Eve, which, it is what it is. But it does seem like it's better for the show that it's not on a holiday when people are probably going to be watching other things.
Yeah.
Unless they were going to do a special. Okay, so the final episode of the season, episode 8, Adamantine. So the word adamantine just really means unable to be broken. So that's not to be confused with Wolverine's adamantium claws, which is the name of a Marvel metal that's clearly based on this root word. This was directed by Tessa Blake, and she directed episodes of a bunch of different things, like A Million Little Things is the name of a show, The 4400, American Horror Story, Riverdale, etc. And the writers this time were, again, Zach Penn and Ira Stephen Bear. We've talked about them lots before. So we start with Aster up in the cupola, communing with both the artifact and her inner child. And Kier is fanboying about it. And Saldana is freaking out about the arrival of the QTA. And this is when we start to see this motif of a door opening with a light beyond that Aster's seeing in her visions.
Yeah.
So it seems like Aster's version of what Avalon saw with the light beckoning her in the little boat across the sea.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there with beckoning. These are both visions that are summoning the person having them to go somewhere to do something, but we're not quite sure what.
I mean, it seems to be that this whole idea of entering the artifacts, when we saw Halen be lured outside, when they tried to lure Parsum, young Aster, when they tried to lure Avalon, it seems, and then eventually they did lure Avalon, and she just disappeared from inside the picker.
Yeah.
So yeah, Finch is suffering. So Saldana goes to get him more drugs and runs into Aster in the kitchen. And we find out Aster and Coley were infamous, and Saldana is disappointed in what she sees before her. Aster, of course, has zero fucks to give about what Saldana thinks about anything. And Kier, the born-again Colomer, is quoting his scripture about how the moment of communion is supposed to be fraught and turbulent to the annoyance of everyone else. Harmony keeps offering to help, but they keep ignoring her, not trusting her. But Saldana thinks they do need Halen, so they're glad to let him in when he returns after a little light fire action with the cutters. So we got an action scene. What did you think?
I actually thought this one worked quite well. It worked much better than the one in episode 2. And actually, for all I was a bit concerned about I think justifiably concerned about the special effects from that scene in episode 2. I really don't think they've had any major issues with them since.
No, I agree. It was just that I think because there are certain things like the space stuff is easier to do because it's all about when there's interactions between, live action people and things and the VFX. That's where it gets trickier, where it starts to look uncanny.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But yeah, since there was a little action, I have to share my favorite action scene from the book, which it's kind of similar. But so we have the protagonist, basically the book version of Halen, is trying to distract a ship of the Riff aliens called a Reaper ship to help other people get away. So the Reaper races my way. No shots fired yet. Claire is halfway to the asteroid field. Moments before we pass, I throw my ship to the side, attempting to ram the Reaper. The Riff pilot is fast. He flits to the side and out of the way, but I'm spinning sideways, rotating as I barrel forward, and I extend at the sampling arm tucked under the nose of the boat, reaching out, making my craft as long as possible, just want to touch, to make contact at full speed, to let this beast know that I pose a threat, for him to concentrate on me. There's a clang as the sampling arm hits the Reaper's trailing wing. A racket. I slam against the side canopy, the crappy NASA restraints giving way. Not meant for this. Stars flash in my vision, and then a hiss. An alarm as the cabin begins to lose pressure. Cold leaks in. A hull rupture. The constellations become a blur as the lifeboat spins in space, and I have one brief moment of lucidity left in which to wonder if I did more damage to my enemy than to myself. Just that angry hope before a bulkhead gives way in my lifeboat, and all that pressurized air rushes out, taking me with it. As I cartwheel through the ruptured hole and out among the lonely and quiet stars, my lungs begin to burn. They say you can survive in the cold vacuum of space for nearly a minute if you hold your breath. Icy tears glaze my vision, and I wonder why anyone would bother. So that's for me was I have to give that point to the book, but I have to point out the protagonist did not have he did not have implants, but he did survive this.
Yeah.
Spoiler, sorry.
Okay.
What did you think about this action compared to it takes place outside the beacon, similar sort of
Yeah,
situation.
I thought it was fine. I thought it sort of it filled up a couple of minutes. It's not kind of where the focus of the episode
No.
is. Like Beacon
No, but I meant
23
the
is
book
not an
version.
action show, but it was fine.
Yeah, no, I meant the book version.
Oh, the book. Sorry.
This.
The book version. Yeah, I mean, I take it the protagonist ship is not as well armed as Halen.
No, it's basically he's in the lifeboat, which is the book version of the Picker, so that's why he talks about that retractable arm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So you imagine it's the Picker fighting against this big alien ship.
Yeah, Hugh Howey has a way of painting pictures with words. He's a very sort of visual writer.
Yeah, I agree. So, but in the show, Astor can't explain to Kier what it was like to commune with the artifact, and he says, "What did it tell you? Quiet." So I guess this quiet thing is another thing of this listen thing they keep saying. Listen, quiet. And Saldana tries to hold Halen up at gunpoint, demanding he take them out of there, but he calls her weak and just takes the gun with like barely a blink. I think that was very embarrassing for her. Helen's back on his gonna get Astor to go with him shtick. Kier says it's his destiny to witness whatever's about to happen, and then Halen gets the hard news about Bart. And then he asks if Harmony's okay. Isn't that a nice way for him to respond?
I think that's it's just one line, but it tells you a lot about Halen.
Yeah.
And who Halen is. That his first reaction is sadness for Bart, and his second reaction is, are the people around me okay?
Yeah, exactly. And he also invites her to go with him and Astor, which there's several times where they talk about Harmony going with him and Astor, and it made me think of the title of the third episode, Why Can't We Go On as Three?
Yeah.
Still
so I mean, the three in that episode is the third person in that episode is Coley, but
right.
But yeah, like the third person actually is Harmony. Like she has always been the third party.
Or Halen, depending on which way you look at it.
Yeah. Depending on whether you want to go chronological.
Yeah. So Harmony's still stuck on surrender, but Halen thinks their best bet is to run. And Saldana and Finch are done with this whole rock messiah thing Kier is on, and they want out now. But they want to take Astor as a hostage to negotiate for safe passage. And Astor, meanwhile, wants Halen to come with her into the artifact. She says a piece of him is already there. What do you think that means?
I assume it means that when those spores possessed Halen, they may have like transmitted his memory, his personality. Maybe even if you want to get metaphysical, a piece of his soul back to home base, basically back to Entity Central.
Yeah, Entity Central. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that he'd find his old friend Gashad there? Like, because she was there also with the spores, and they said Rocky said I was there with you and Gashad. So do you think
I think he would find some part of her, but I guess what I don't know is, are we just talking about they have access to Halen and Gashad's memories, or do they have some
part of their soul, as you
personality?
put it?
Like I said, some part of their metaphysical self that is caught up in the entity, or is it just they have access to what they experience? Because those two things aren't the same thing.
But I also wonder, is there any individuality in there, or does it all just dissolve into one collective being?
Yeah, I don't think we have enough information to
No.
judge that yet.
And then the mothership arrives, and it's Aleph himself, not a copy of him, and Harmony wonders why he'd take such a risk. Harmony tells Aster not to tell her anything about her plans because Harmony is incapable of keeping it from Aleph.
You get
So,
like serious Darth Vader arriving vibes off that. I got like I was doing the dun 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 da da.
and then instead of the breathing, it ends with an inhaler.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I have an asthmatic cat. I've been so much with inhalers last days. And yet she says, he is alive, as am I. And we find out they're called Quantic AI. So, yeah, again, it's this question still lingering from, and I'm happy for it to linger. I'm sure it's going to be addressed in season 2. But that same question from the end of episode 4 when Milan died. What are these AI they claim to be alive as well as computers? Are they different from AI like Bart?
Yeah, I think that's like you're absolutely right. It's one of the big questions for season 2. I really do, again, I don't think we have enough information to hazard a guess at this
Yeah.
point.
But we have, as you put it, the Asimov rules that Harmony cannot defy her maker.
Yeah.
I still think she's going to find a way to break away from him, but
And
it's not
she
Harmony.
also can't help Palin. It's not that she can't defy Aleph. She also can't help Palin or Aster in any way. She can't like provide any insight to them.
Yeah. That's another reason why it seems like Bart's maybe a little freer than her.
Yeah. I definitely think
Even though
Bart,
he has a direct order not to help Palin, he finds a way to
he's
do it.
able to come up with a workaround. I mean, I tend to think this is just because I tend to sort of come at that from the point of view that Bart is just older than she is. He's had more time to develop strategies than Harmony
Well,
has.
but I still think it's that we saw that his maker, so to speak, his maker's kind of the ISA, but his maker's also Dr. Avalon, and she left most of his parameters open.
Yeah. I mean, I
Um,
think it'll be an interesting question whether Harmony can get there in time, or
yeah.
whether Harmony is what she is.
Yeah, no, I think that she might break my heart in the end. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
really going to grow to trust her and then she breaks my heart. Or maybe we have, an Maeve like arc from
But
Westworld.
the thing is, if she does break your heart, it won't be her fault. She won't want
No, I
to
know.
do it. That will be the tragedy of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll be Aleph breaking my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kier points out that Aleph has gamed a million versions of your conversation, he says to Aster, and in every version you lose, which is such a good point that he has this ability to just, like, not to bring up Marvel again, but I'm always going to do that. Like Doctor Strange going through all the possibilities in his head and, okay, this is the one that works because he has that computing power to do that, whereas humans just don't have the time.
Yeah.
Aster starts seeing visions of her young self looking at her adult self in a gown standing by that open doorway of light, and Halen crouches beside the kid version and whispers something in her ear. What did you make of this?
Hey, Hale in a very nice cardigan.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in a very nice sort of sailor's cardigan. And also, Lena Headey is wearing that gown.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
if tattoos on full display.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I mean, I guess this is how she knows part of him is already in there.
Yeah, it's the way he crouches down and whispers in her ear. I get the sense that whatever he said, it was comforting.
Yeah, I think he
It's
said, I
okay
think we
kind of
hear
thing.
later something like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
Which also makes me there are several things that make me wonder if they're going to explore the linear or maybe not so linear nature of time next season, because
ooh,
we have this
ooh,
whole crouching whispering thing happening before we actually see Aster die. So
ooh, interesting. It's all gonna get a bit timey. You think it's gonna get a bit timey
wibbly
wimey?
wobbly.
Okay.
But yeah, so then Tweedledee and Tweedledum get a message from the QTA home base, and they want them to sacrifice themselves, and they are not keen on this plan, especially not Saldana. So I have to say, this is also when I identified with Saldana. I'm like, yeah, seriously.
Yeah, you all right? You think you want us to become suicide bombers? You come here and be suicide. You be a suicide bomber.
And then we get hippie Professor Hair Aleph here
Yeah,
now.
I thought this was really interesting.
Yeah, the hair.
Well, yeah, because not just the hair, but he's aged. Why would an AI and an AI whose personality is based on a guy who doesn't think very much of the human race or doesn't think very much of this version of the human race anyway, why would he choose to care about his appearance? Why would he choose to age?
Yeah, it's a very good question.
I mean, is it just literally that presumably everybody at the QTA knows he's AI? He's not fooling anybody into pretending he's human?
No. They know.
Yeah, I thought that was because that did make me think back to Milan, and maybe Milan's disdain for humanity doesn't extend to himself. You know, it's a form of vanity. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Which is very human of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's playing verbal chess here with Aster, and Aster finds out that Aleph also knew Bart. So it's like this whole show is like the 6 degrees of Bart separation. And he neglects to mention that Bart killed him. But it's interesting because this whole killing to transcend thing, like maybe Aleph is even thankful for it now.
Yeah.
And maybe that also, like, he's not the one who kills Aster in the end, but maybe he's also might have wanted it in a way, like like Kier said, he's gamed it out a million different ways, every way this could play out. And probably he thought maybe Kier will kill her and she'll be forced to commune with the artifact.
Because he doesn't want Aster to be the first person, the first human, the first corporeal entity to be in contact with this thing. He wants to be that person.
Well, but he can't do it. So I feel like he actually does want Aster to do it because she can, and he wants that information. He wants...
Yeah, I still think he's trying to work out a way in which it can be him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he would like that, but he obviously has no idea of how it's possible.
Yeah.
What do you think about his bringing up Marvel again already? So you have the Watcher who says, like, I watch everything, but I cannot intervene. And so that's why he says, Bart was outside my purview. I couldn't help him.
Yeah, bullshit.
Even though he was a cool AI. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm calling so much bullshit on that.
Who's worse, Aleph or Solomon? To Aleph argues his own point. He says, my actions or inactions are not based in cruelty. I cherish humanity.
Oh, yeah, well, what you freaking do, frankly? It's got to be Solomon. Solomon has to be the worst because at least Aleph has the kind of quasi justification that what he thinks he's doing is justified. Solomon's just doing it because he can. Solomon is that kid that pulls the wings off flies.
Yes, I feel like he probably got out the magnifying glass and lit bugs on fire.
Yeah, he did. He definitely did.
Aster says she'll tell Aleph what he wants in exchange for Halen's full pardon and release, but Aleph points out the artifact controls Aster more than she controls it. But she does care about him, like, more than Coley. She definitely cares about Halen more than Coley. And it's interesting to see how Aleph refers to Milan as his makers and sees him as weaker, but it reminds us that this is not the same man who bonded with Sylvie.
Yeah, but that man is in there somewhere.
Yeah, he's the base of the code, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of him in there. And Halen says, Harmony says again, Aster's a great liar. And I just wanted to say, I love that you and I were talking about Aster being a great liar in the very first episodes before the characters started saying it.
Yeah,
I think that's a good sign of character writing.
it is. It
They
is.
showed us before they told us.
Yeah.
And then we've got, okay, Loopsy and Poopsy are building a bomb together. And they're not interested in Kier's opinion on it. You like that one the best? Luke's laughing very hard. Okay. So Kier is advising against the interests of the column. I guess the column isn't really about this religion. It feels like it's more his thing, or maybe it's just the way any religious group or any like idealistic group, you have the zealots and then you have people who join for like it feels like this couple joined because they like blowing things up.
Yeah, and I think they have a justified gripe against QTA, and the sort of they don't like the society they are in, but I don't think they entirely buy into Kier's worldview of how to make society better. That's not what they're there for. They're there to attack the society that exists. And yeah, I don't think that's contradictory. Like organizations like the column always attract those two archetypes of people. So
Mm. Yeah, it's true.
yeah,
Yeah, because it's like any body that's allowed to exercise force is going to attract people who have feel like violence is the way to get out their
yeah,
aggression. So following Alepht's orders, Harmony locks Moxie and Proxy in the airlock and begins to suffocate them, like Bart once did to him. But the moment he looks away, she lets them out and tells them to collect Kier and get out of there. So this tells us Aleph can't look everywhere at once, or maybe he just intrinsically trusts Harmony, that he doesn't feel like he has to watch her.
yeah. And I think it's also at this particular instance, he's probably using an uncommon amount of computing power to sort of focus on the
The
conversation with
artifact.
Asta and to run, scenarios. And I
Right.
also think it frankly doesn't matter.
And the artifact, I'm sure.
It doesn't matter to him what happens to Mopsy and Flopsy.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's true. He doesn't care
yeah,
about
he
them
just
for
doesn't
sure.
care what happens to them
Yeah.
one way or the other.
Yeah, that's true. Although, I mean, I guess he wanted her to eliminate them just because they could be kinks to cause
Yeah,
trouble.
but if he gets what he wants, there'll be infinitesimal
Yeah.
kinks in the road.
I guess we'll see how mad he is about it next season.
Yeah.
I feel like this is also support for the harmonies and evolution of hope. Mumba voice theory, just putting it out there.
Yeah, I think that possibility is looking stronger than it did
Yeah.
before this episode.
And then he says to Harmony during this, by the way, yours, like as in Harmony's and Aster's, is a truly successful relationship. I'll be sure to acknowledge you for service. And she's like, I'm not finished, am I? And he's like, no, I need to learn stuff from you. But I'm wondering if he already knew Aster was finished, and that's what that was about.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
makes me wonder, like, is he just pairing his pet AI with people he feels like need to be watched?
Yeah. Yeah. The longer this goes on, the worse I'm feeling about Harmony.
Sorry. But I mean, I do think that I do think she ultimately wants to be loyal to Aster.
Yeah.
And anything she does against it is because she is literally forced to. So I'm really rooting for her to break away from her programming.
But I think that could take a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think with it, if that happens in season 2, it will be something I think
Toward the end. Maybe
happens
that's like the
towards the
payoff.
end of season 2.
Yeah, maybe that's like the payoff at the end. Yeah. So Halen talks tough to Aleph, and Aleph says he's calling the military on him, and Halen finally agrees to try Aster's way for a 24-hour trial, and Harmony included. Harmony will go with them to communicate back, although I don't understand how they think that's going to work if
Yeah, no,
she
that
can't,
like Harmony.
she can't even see the thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that.
Yeah. But it's very nice they wanted to take her. And Kier discovers Aster's box of family stuff, and he decides he doesn't like Aster's way after all. So he shoots her, forcing her to merge her consciousness with the artifact out of desperation. And she goes through the door into the light.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I think we can say with absolute certainty is that Asta's physical body is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
She is Kia shoots her with one of these grav gun things. She hits her head quite hard on a metal surface. She falls down, and there is blood everywhere. And Halen is cradling her. He's shouting for Harmony. And just, the light has gone out of her eyes. She is physically dead.
Yeah, actually, so I read that death of that book character Scarlet last episode, and I thought that maybe that's what Coley was kind of standing in for in a way, but actually, in the end, I do think it is Aster who is Scarlet.
Yeah.
The dying in his arms and, killed out of a last-minute betrayal by someone you kind of thought you trusted. It's really sad also before that. She says, Halen, I choose you in every universe.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Platonic or not, that's a really nice
and I think
nice
I think it is platonic.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess they in the end they're not going to consummate it now, that's for sure. Well, I don't know, who knows.
Yeah.
Maybe we get more Solaris on this and they get
Yeah.
physical bodies. But yeah, another reason why that made me think about the Scarlet character from the book is that she's delivering a message on behalf of an alien race. In this case, the alien race is not the Riff, it's the, Space Force.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts overall on this ending, on the landing in this place, other than being very glad that season 2 is coming?
I mean, I certainly didn't see Aster's death coming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, partly that's because it's Lena Headey. It's the biggest name associated with the show. I really was surprised. Do you know if Lena Headey is attached to Beacon 23 for season 2?
I mean, we got the preview or we got some teases of her, but I'm honestly not expecting to see much of her. She wasn't one of. I know that Stephen James has been made an executive producer for season 2, and she apparently is not on that list. It could be that they're hiding things from us, but I'm thinking she's gone into the artifacts. We're going to see her backstory more. We know because we have the casting for Teen Aster, but there's another character that they're pushing forward as the main character with Natasha Mumba's back and Stephen James is back.
Yeah, because in that very short teaser, you referenced there is a woman in a spacesuit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Turns
Yeah,
up.
it's like the actress's name is Ellen Wong and the character's name is Iris.
Okay.
So again, not a character from the book because none of them are, but except maybe Halen and Rocky. But I'm wondering if maybe she'll end up being the Claire character, since obviously that's not what's going to happen with Aster. But yeah, so I think for myself, the last episode was not my favorite of the season, but I didn't dislike it. I think there's a lot of interesting things that happen, and I'm very excited that we are going to get some answers so soon.
Yeah, I'm really glad we don't have like a 2-year wait for the next season.
Yeah.
So the first episode, season 2. We will have Kia. We will have Halen. We will have Spick and Span, and we will have Harmony.
Yeah, and Aleph.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll see. We have definitely have a lot of thoughts from the community on the end of this season, all over the place on this one. And we're going to run through a few more of our final thoughts and a preview of what we know about season 2. We'll be right back after this break to talk about that.
The Quantum Tunneler has new messages.
All right, jumping right into the feedback, we're going to begin with Stu. Duve71 says, pre-episode 6, great episode of the pod about our last episode. Thank you, Stu. Some reflections. I like Luke's take on the QTA tripping itself up by sending multiple people to the beacon. However, we got strong vibes that the QTA is a corporation. We have contemporary examples where factions within the corporation world can end up in conflict, proceeding with our own agendas. Classic left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. Defo, Wayland, Yutani.
I mean, I think my point is everybody goes on about how efficient QTA is and how inefficient the ISA is. And I actually think that the truth is probably a bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, fair enough. He says in episode 4, I twigged that Hope stated that Milan created the beacon, so a lot of keepers before, so Sylvie missed the info on how many keepers there had been. Perhaps Bart is wiped between keepers, could explain the different aspects of Bart and how he interacts with the... Okay, so this was written before the latest episode, so now we know why Bart has a different personality. And although he does still have that through line of being a homicidal little bugger, as Stu puts it. So he says another nod to the biomechanical tech, like the life pod and the wrecker hackers interface. When Milan talks about evolution of man and machine, the synergy, the event horizon, he's definitely referencing the singularity, which you flagged in the transhumanism angle. I haven't read the Beacon 23 book yet. Thank you. I did ask to do that. Going to wait for this series to play out and then go for a read. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you might not want to be confused, but also it doesn't really interfere because they're so very different. After episode 6, he said that was a really good episode, and I think it cements this as a cut above the average sci-fi series. The way they are using the self-contained tale type approach to give key exposition is gripping stuff. Luke will be happy with the amount of exposition here. We have the link between the artifacts and the rocks, why Aster has been drawn to the beacon. I'm assuming the war between the column and the colonial authorities, and still lots of mysteries to learn more about. Looking forward to how they're going to bring the season to a close. And then, yeah, Stu let me know that he wasn't able to share his thoughts about the finale due to a loss in the family. So I just wanted to say that our thoughts are with you and your wife, Stu. Thank you so much for being one of the brightest lights in this community. And we look forward to hearing your feedback if you're up for sharing it at a later date. And
Yeah,
that goes,
thanks for everything, Stu. And you're in our thoughts. Thanks for all you do for the community.
yeah. And for everyone else, by the way, just because the season is over, it doesn't mean we're done talking about this show. So please do pass on any feedback you might still have. So we had from David Medina at David Medina on Twitter. After episode 6, he said, they totally redeemed themselves with today's episode. Told you I'd watch episode 6 and I was rewarded. Best episode. I'm now back on board Beacon 23. So many so many answers I was craving and they delivered, and the answers were good. I'd love a Harmony origin story. This episode was what I was wanting and waiting for. It's one of my favorites too. Abby said after episode 6, what a mind-blowing episode. More and more, the show feels like the story of Bart and his experiences with humans and aliens. Aster's backstory revealed. Wow. I'm guessing everyone will be falling in love more and more with Bart/Chopper. Chopper being a Star Wars reference to another murderous robot. Bart watches and learns and emotes. Loved that last line about the power of ideas. That said, still no idea what this turns out to be about. At this point, I have given up on pretty much any hope for a book equivalent character ending up on screen. Hey, Halen and Rocky. Although they might still go with the human versus alien and the whole trolley problem there. Just very much changed in delivery. No fierce looking cuddly pets, no riff. Instead, the swarm. It is amazing that this show keeps reminding me of so many other sci-fi novels. Expanse, Old Man's War, The Swarm, Solaris, everything except Beacon 23. LMAO. I okay, so then after the last 2 episodes, she said, I what? So Aster is proto-moleculed now, or what? They keep calling that alien entity artifact. Is it just me, or is it kind of a misnomer? Yeah, it is. I went and checked with several dictionaries. Halen did some cool expansing, and my heart breaks for Bart. If only there would be a way to turn off the oxygen before Solomon again. Or was that Aleph? Was Solomon under his command? Halen went out to collect some missing rocks from Solomon's ship to rejoin with the artifact, as they keep calling it. Did some cool space fight. Almost heard Captain Holden saying, fire up the PDCs, Amos. Looks cool, yes, but still reminds me too much of The Expanse. Seems more of an AI versus human conflict still. The alien entity just a means for the factions to obsess about and nominally find purpose. I understand that Halen and Aster are supposed to have gotten close, but it feels a bit sudden, the whole Doctor Strange line of need you in every universe thing. Do you agree?
No, I don't think it's strange. I think it makes sense with what Asta is experiencing at that particular moment.
Yeah, I think it's an intense experience. Like we see them just being consumed by the artifact and sleep and nothing else. And
Yeah.
Aster has good reason to think that it's, I guess they probably feel ultra connected because they both have this connection to the artifact. And like, I guess that means Coley didn't have such a connection to the artifact.
No, I think we can safely say, I mean, Coley wasn't there very long, but neither Halen nor Asta had to be there very long to have that connection with the artifact. So yeah, I think it's more likely that whatever the artifact does, it wasn't doing it to Coley.
Hmm. Yeah. So Abby goes on, the ending. What are we supposed to think about it? Theorize till the new season. I'm sure Aster will get proto-moleculed, as in the aliens will fix her somehow, but it won't be her anymore. Favorite episode. I like the flashbacks. Getting some answers is nice. Favorite character is Bart. Sad face, crying face.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that the aliens will fix her. I think that we saw in the preview for the next season flashes of Aster's face on the computer screen, but I don't think we'll get her body back in any way. I don't
Oh
even
no,
think we'll
no,
actually
no,
get her real person back.
no,
Just,
no, 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 no. No, I don't think we'll get a physical version of Asta. I can't see that at all.
I don't know if she's an individual anymore, really, or just like a face they use to communicate with him.
Yeah, it could be either.
Well,
Like we really don't know.
so Abby's prediction for season 2 is Halen picks up with the alien connection. He used to be connected to. It's why he's in the beacon, no? And I think he still is connected. They're still in his brain. And she says these last 2 episodes, he seems a bit of a normie regarding the pulsating whatchamacallit. Yeah, I guess he was no longer falling over with visions, I guess, because they got him to do what they wanted him to do, which was like the opening of the antennae so that they could all
Yeah,
fly out. Quinn Shea at Quinn30960 says, I'm loving the show. I'm not sure if I have a favorite character yet. I'm really enjoying the story. I'm loving the mystery of it all. I like how it's not just a simple story, there are lots of layers to it. I'm hoping for more of the same next season. I'd like to know more of the world and more of the characters. So, yeah, agreed.
yeah,
Um, Mere I Am White at Vader Girl says, thank you guys for turning me onto this show. Only from your tweets did I hear about it. I'm glad I found it. I'm excited to listen to the podcast, the deep dive. Definitely Team Halen, but Bart seems to be hacked or suffer from a virus, as Harmony discovered. Bart is compromised by something. And yeah, I guess she sent this probably before the last 2 episodes.
yeah. I hope season 2 is more widely available
Yeah.
and is given a bit more of given a bit more of a push.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for because I'm an MGM Plus subscriber in Europe, and I'm waiting for the American shows to come to the European version because I still haven't watched From either,
Yeah, I
which
was
is
going to say the
interesting.
European version of MGM Plus doesn't offer you much
Well, it's
particularly.
it's like the leftover stuff from Lionsgate, which I like, because that's where The Great is here, and that's where I like a bunch of those, period shows. But and there's a bunch of old Stargate stuff and stuff like that. But yeah, I want the new MGM Plus shows. Come on, chip
Yeah,
chip.
come on.
So Mark at Markall84 says that Bart's emotion decisions seem to be based more on emotions, which is odd for an AI. Maybe the artifacts had some sort of impact on him, or someone tweaked his programming. Well, so we know someone tweaked his programming. He says, I really enjoyed the series so far. I like the fact that there's already a second season in the works. The only thing I don't like is that it's only 8 episodes. Episode 6 answered a lot of questions and has a big reveal at the end. I'm Team Halen, not Team Bart. I do not trust that AI. I feel he is compromised. Well, I'm curious, Mark. Please let me know what you think after you watch the finale. He says Bart's a fun character, but I would never trust him. His perception of Halen murdering the last beacon keeper and paranoia makes him too much of a wild card. Can't wait for the next episode. I hope to see a refocus to present to the present timeline. I'm curious as to what happens next. Well, Yeah, Mark, please let me know once you see the episodes. I do know that Mark accidentally watched episode 8 before episode 7 and was confused, but then realized the mistake. So I'm curious, once you watch the episodes in the correct order, what you think? KGBT Plus at Indiffer says, my theory is whatever Kier saw made him kill Aster because he realized that the artifact is some kind of portal which will lead to further expansion. Also, Aster said something about her choosing Halen in every universe. My favorite character is Aleph. Also, my favorite technology. And the first episode with him is also my favorite. The column and Aleph have opposite agendas. It's like the evangelists and open AI. The column are against human expansion to space, i.e., against technological progress, while Aleph is the head of a corporation responsible for that expansion, and by itself, he is the product of such progress. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
This is the same person who brought up that harmony was likely an evolution of hope. So keep your theories coming, KGBT Plus. Lena Hedistan at Maniskin24 says the last 2 episodes were by far my favorite ones, although I'm honestly a bit disappointed in the way they made Aster find out about her past and true identity. They didn't give that enough time, and she was also way too chill about it. With Coley, it felt like she was trying to suppress her real feelings. But in this case, she just found out her whole life basically was a lie, and she's just like, I was born here, duh. That whole Messiah talk was brought up a lot, first with Aleph and now with Aster. It makes me think the artifact flashbacks also gave an insight into the future in that last scene. It might be a kind of death for her, but also a quote unquote betterment. She might even be above Aleph now. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much on the money.
And the whole Messiah thing being like an insight into the future, that's giving me Dune vibes.
Yeah, definite vibes there.
Yeah, and I was thinking about her being like so chill about the response from, about figuring out that her whole childhood was erased. I'm wondering if that's just a combination of the Gwib juice, calming down her brain, and also the control of the artifact that makes her be like, oh, okay, well, that's normal, that's fine.
Yeah, I think we haven't gotten to the bottom of how the Gwib and the artifacts interact with one another, because I like your idea from earlier on that like the Gwib might sort of, the artifact might be being affected by the Gwib as
Yeah.
well. I think that's quite a cool idea.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think it's interesting. I like when all the pieces tied together.
Yeah.
Okay, so switching over to Discord, and if you want to discuss with us on Discord and contribute to the discussion here, then there's a link in the show notes. And Coco Colburn said, just finished episode 5 and we'll catch the podcast for 3 to 5 tomorrow. Really appreciate the coverage, Elysia and Luke. I read the book twice, but was struggling to get into the TV series until episodes 3 to 5. It's different enough from the book that once I let go of needing it to match, I could enjoy the tale being told. Looking forward to the next episodes. So, Coco, please let us know what you thought of the rest of the season.
What you thought of the finale.
But yeah, it's definitely, I think in general, whenever it's an adaptation, I try to dissociate the 2 versions in my head to not drive myself crazy. But obviously, it's like a fun game I'm playing where I'm picking out like the smallest things, like, oh, I see. That's definitely from the book. Rocky Zim said after episode 6, just watched the latest episode of Beacon 23. I don't trust Bart. I got some Silo vibes from everyone's different perspective of the bright light in space with the relics. For a second, I thought I was thinking maybe Bart was projecting the image and manipulating the people on board. It's interesting. So yeah, I guess that's not what happened in the end.
Yeah,
but
no, that's definitely not what happened in the end.
So after the last 2 episodes, they continued. I'm kind of confused after watching the last 2 episodes. I assume Aster died and is in quote unquote heaven with the rocks. The artifact seems to cause certain people to go mad or to become addicted to the artifact. Is it real, or is it a result of people being unable to manage being alone on the beacon for so long? The picture of the guy in the lighthouse being protected from the waves has some type of meaning. Part of me was thinking, is that the guy dreaming this whole thing? Yeah, so I guess this is actually a central question of the book. These things that are being brought up about like whether things that are being seen and experienced are just a product of being alone for so long or actually happening, like the talking rock.
Yeah.
And the question of the meaning with the lighthouse picture. I mean, the meaning in the book, I think, is mostly like the meaning here, where it's used as a metaphor to reflect on regularly while getting high.
Yeah. I think the whilst getting high is important there.
Yeah, it's like getting stoned and,
Yeah.
talking about, man.
Yeah,
Um,
what if a rock doesn't know it's a rock, it just is a rock.
yeah. But I think Rocky, you're asking the right questions. I think you're asking questions the show wants you to ask, and it is more about like letting you ponder these philosophies. There are answers. They're doling them out, but I think
Yeah,
they
they
want
can.
they want to ask questions. So Sub-Zero said Ep 6 was good, another standalone like Ep 4, but I connected more with this one than with 4. Maybe because of how they chose to tell the story with Bart as the narrator, or maybe because this is the second time they've done it and I'm more accustomed to it. Either way, it worked for me and I was thoroughly engaged. I've been a Bart hater throughout this show. I don't like the version of Bart that Aster and Halen are interacting with. All the murderous tendencies aside, can't really hate him for that and still love Chopper. I just find Bart whiny and irritating. Nails on a chalkboard. That said,
Ooh.
episode 6 has somewhat rehabilitated my opinion of Bart, or at least I understand better why he's the way he is. Such a tragic figure, hence the Shakespearean references, I think. The little girl was very good, although kids turning creepy kind of weirds me out. They've they've laid out a lot of pieces to the puzzle. I'm looking forward to seeing how they tie it all together.
Yeah.
Um, for
Well,
Elysia,
I'd like to know whether his thoughts on Bart are the same after episode 7 and 8.
yeah, after that ending.
Oh God, that ending.
For Elisa said after episode 6 was great. Aster backstory. I'm surprised Bart didn't recognize her. More revelations on the comet and alien life forms. More politics. It's getting so good. And after episode 7 and 8, my husband thinks the artifact is a hallucination or not real. That said, very puzzling last 2 episodes. Eager to hear the podcast. I can't believe Aster is dead. Maybe the same thing happened to her that happened to Milan, but with the artifact. She said she saw Halen in the artifact. I wonder what that means. I felt really bad for Bart. Solomon wiped his memories, which is very disturbing. I get QTA found out he was a murder bot or doing things against his programming. I thought this season overall was good, just nothing completely answered. My favorite episodes were 4 and 5. I really enjoyed the backstories, the world building, and Bart's background. Barbara Hershey and Stephen Root were great. That said, my favorite character is Aster. I really hope she isn't dead. Tech wise, the AI, 3D printer, and drug rooftop was pretty cool. Also, if you're super rich, you can die and your consciousness can become an AI. Was that what happened to Milan? Not sure I like the column and their whole message in Quest. 2 episodes deep, lots to think on.
Yeah, definitely lots to think on.
Yeah, so that was the end for the feedback for now for season 1. Luke, any final thoughts? What were your favorite episodes of the season?
I think probably episode 4
Okay.
and episode 7 because it broke my heart.
Yeah, okay, fair. Yeah, I think for me, 4 and 6, I like the backstory, although I really did like all the stuff with Halen and Aster too. So it's just these standalone episodes stood out to me. Who's your favorite character and why is it Bart?
Well, yeah, it's Bart. It has to be Bart. I mean, it just transparently is Bart. I mean, I do like the way this season has kind of evolved over the 8 episodes. After the first couple of episodes, I very much thought this was going to be a two-hander with
Right.
Halen and Aster and Bart and Harmony just chipping in like a bit of exposition every so
Mm-hmm.
often. But I love the way that Harmony and Bart have become fully fleshed out, fully realized characters. They're not just there to provide information to the protagonists. They are actually protagonists in and of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a very different. I'm not saying worse. I'm just saying different. I think it's going to be a very different show without Asta and Bart
Mm-hmm.
in season 2, because Harmony and Halen, they have interacted, but not all that much.
Yeah.
Not when you
It's
put
going
it
to
next
force them
to
together
Harmony
more.
and Asta.
Yeah.
So I think I think tonally it could be a very different show.
Yeah, I hope if Bart doesn't come back, I hope there's another character that and one of the new characters captures that energy.
Yeah,
What's your favorite tech?
I like the 3D printer.
Okay.
I like the idea that you can just make anything.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the personal AI. That sounds so useful.
And also I want
It's like a best friend and a helper built in.
yeah, I want Solomon's kitchen. Like now we know that he is actually dead.
Yeah.
You know, if they're selling
And we know
off
Halen doesn't appreciate it.
if they're selling off his effects, I want his pots and pans.
Yeah. Fair. Halen's definitely not going to cook.
Yeah.
So here's how MGM Plus describes season 2. The official description is Beacon 23 is now a little more than a prison with Aleph on board, and the artifact provides more questions than answers. Without a clear path forward, the inhabitants of Beacon 23 must rely on each other, but their conflicting agendas may get in the way. And Beacon 23's, so Glenn Mazzara, the showrunner for season 2, says Beacon 23 season 2 ups the game. More action, more mysteries, more twists, and exciting new characters. It's a thrill ride. I can't wait for the audience to see it.
Now that's interesting, because does that imply that Aleph becomes a sort of main character then? Then he's not
I
just
don't
there for the
know.
odd episode.
Yeah, I don't know because he's not. When they talk about, they said Glenn Mazzara says, and Joy Blake, by the way, is the other showrunner for season 2. And they say that James will return, obviously, alongside Natasha Mumba and Ellen Wong, who plays that new character Iris. So they make it sound like those are the 3 main characters for season 3. Although there are more, obviously, and we
Yeah,
know
because
Aleph's returning.
I can't see Kia and Fiddle and Faddle lasting all that long. I
Yeah.
certainly can't see Kia lasting all that long, because Halen's going to kill him.
Well, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
can't imagine he's going to be cool with what happens.
No,
What did you
Halen is
think?
literally going to rip him apart with his bare hands.
What did you think of the trailer for season 2?
I mean, it's only 30 seconds long, and it's sort of
Right. It's a teaser.
flashy image.
Yeah, okay, it's a teaser. Trailers
So
are
the
too
only
strong a word.
things I really picked out of it were Iris, that we're going to
Yeah.
get another person turning up, and that Harmony looks like she's having some kind of episode. It looks like she's having maybe some sort of technical malfunction. Because
Right.
she's doing
Okay.
like that version of the thing where she blips out, except she's not quite blipping out. She's just sort of like losing resolution.
Okay. What stood out to me was it seems like some version. I don't know if it was a video from the past of Aster or if
Oh
Aster
yeah,
was somehow communicating through the technology.
yeah, through the screens, and
Yeah.
she's asking Halen to listen to her, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is what the artifact keeps saying to Halen over and over. Listen to me, listen to me.
yeah,
Um, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't. I'm not holding my breath to see Lena Headey that much. But yeah, we'll see. And I'm also noticing that in the teaser that there's themes of loss. Like we hear Harmony talking about loss a lot. So and this is obviously going to pick up with dealing with the loss of Aster
yeah.
and Bart. Is there anything you hope they do differently in season 2?
No, I mean, I do feel like it's going to be a very different show anyway, for reasons I've already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So
New
I think
showrunners.
this could feel like, tonally, I would expect this season 2 to feel quite different to season 1.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I hope it doesn't get too different. But I'm curious because again, new showrunners, a lot of the cast is new. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
We're going to get answers though in April 2024, so benefit of filming both seasons back to back.
Yeah, we don't have that. We don't have all that long to wait.
Yeah. And IMDb is currently listing 9 episodes for season 2, with episode 9 labeled Luan Casca, which means Easter Monday in Irish. So take all of that with a grain of salt because it's IMDb and anyone can just insert random information. So I'm not trusting anything till announced by the studio, but interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, this is not the last time you'll hear us talking about Beacon 23. Of course, we'll be back to discuss season 2 in April, but we'll also be talking about it as long as you guys are. So, again, please send in any feedback you might have, any thoughts you have on this season. And yeah, there might be a bonus interview coming your way too about this season. Meanwhile, here in this feed, watch out for, actually, by the time this comes out, you'll already have the winter holiday special where Luke and we had a really good time talking about It's a Wonderful Life and a bunch of variations on that, especially Luke's favorite Forever Clarence.
Jeez.
He's put his head in his hands. And so also look out on the book club. Silazins will get another holiday freebie, which will be an audio drama linked to that episode. And here we're going to be picking back up with the Dune novel, ranking the most iconic scenes based on feedback collected. And also, yeah, you can catch up with the intro ep in the meantime about Frank Herbert's life and how and why the story is created and what we'll be covering in the series. And that's going to be followed with episodes covering the Jodorowsky documentary, the 1984 Lynch movie, the sci-fi miniseries, and of obviously Villeneuve's Part 1 and Part 2. After that, we'll finish the series with some previews of what we might be able to expect from Part 3, the book it's based on, and how that's been adapted before. And yeah, I've heard that Villeneuve said that so part 3 isn't officially greenlit, but he said that the script is almost done. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere they're aiming for a 2027 release on that.
Yeah. We talk about this forever.
Yeah.
We'll make sure you're ready.
Yeah.
And we want to hear your notes about any and all of the above, of course. So please email us at willshiftdustpodcast@gmail.com or check in on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter or Blue Sky or other social media at Elysia CB. And Luke?
I am just Luke Middip, and I'm only on Twitter and Blue Sky.
And the book club. So we have the Beacon 23 book breakdown already there if you want to check it out. We've got the shift breakdown will come out. So you'll find the link in the show notes for that book club. And if you enjoy this episode, please share it with friends who might also be into Beacon 23. And we really appreciate any 5-star ratings as they make a huge difference in helping us get more people to find this show. Meanwhile, on the Lorehounds network, the MC Universe, we're covering What If. So there'll be a recap episode of the first season of What If. And then after that season closes, we'll be obviously getting into that and also covering Echo in January. And there's also one shots for the Doctor Who 60th anniversary special. The Creator, Rebel Moon is coming up. There's one from a couple of the guys from David and Brandon about the new Netflix movie, Leave the World Behind, with Mahershala Ali and Julia Roberts. And also Book Nook and Star Wars movie watch throughs, including the Star Wars holiday special. So if you want to hear the guys roast that, you can find that in the Lorehounds feed. Properly Howard is on hiatus, but you can dig through their backlog of fun coverage of horror movies and sequels. You don't really need to watch the movies. And the Properly Howard guys and the Lorehound guys are getting together to do the Severance pod. So you can find breakdowns for season 1, season 2 coming soon. And Luke, how are things going with
my podcast? It could be said. The first part of our review of the year is now up. I think we'll be recording part 2 sometime this coming weekend. So that will probably be up in that week between Christmas and New Year.
Excellent. Well, wishing you all at home a happy new year, and we'll be back in your ears until then. We'll just be here mourning Bart and waiting for Asta to lead us to the next phase of human evolution.